Okay, Daniel.
Hello.
Welcome to Basis 24. And you know somebody that we've been interviewing over the last few years. Would you have any idea who that guy is?
Yes, that would be one of my childhood buddies called James Casbolt, and now known as Michael Prince.
So how did you get to know him and tell him the story?
I think the first time I met James, he came down with his dad and his mum, and he was moving into his dad's place. I think he'd had some problems up country in Reading from where he came from, and he was moving into his dad's place. His dad's place was above my mother's on Draycott Terrace, flat 1 my mother's was. His was the one above. This is in St Ives, Cornwall, and we got introduced via that. His auntie used to be best friends with my mother. Yeah, so I knew her children.
What are we talking about? What sort of
era? What era? Oh,
age?
Crikey, I was 12, so good 11 years ago. No, 21 years ago. Yeah, 21 years ago, crikey. Yeah, so it's a long time. I've known him a long time.
So it's just childhood mates? And
we weren't really that close when we were that young, actually. It was really weird. He was a couple of years older than me, so I suppose he was a bit above my age groups and looked down on me. I was, to say the least, a bit off the wall when I was a young kid, you know, as in I was full of energy and a bit crazy, so... Yeah, he didn't
think you were a special kid.
Yeah, I was one of the kids they would say was a special case and needed help, and you know I wasn't your average society child that was brought through. In fact, actually, I was classed as, from a very young age, as one of the most hyperactive cases they'd seen in 10 years in the UK, which is what they told my mum, my poor mother. Yeah, so I was a bit off the wall, and I think that James, he found it very difficult to handle me at that age because obviously I had so much energy and stuff like that. So we never really connected. I know that we spent like one night watching TV together and stuff and talking just about normal stuff, but other than that, we never really hung out until further on as I hit my adulthood, and he'd moved away. Like moved out of the house that he was in.
Let's concentrate on the times that you spent together when you were young.
Right, okay, well...
And what about this hyperactive child thing? Did they give you drugs and things?
Yeah, well, basically what it was I was diagnosed at a really young age, like something, I think it was 6 or 7. You'll have to excuse me, and I will say this now, my memory of things when I was back at that time has always been a bit foggy, but I can remember certain things, but dates and stuff like that and timings have been slightly a bit messed up, and that I've always been like that, and I think that's due to a bit of me as well, actually, because time to me is sort of, I've never sort of been a big thing about it, so dates and things like that. But I was classed as being super hyperactive, like one of the biggest cases they'd seen, and they wanted to give me Ritalin, the government, from a young age. Now, my mum sort of was totally against this, and she really didn't want to go down that path. But it got to a certain stage. Well, because obviously with Ritalin, if you do any research on Ritalin, it's actually medical amphetamine, which is speed, basically. It's medical speed. Now, if you're giving medical speed to a hyperactive kid, I mean, if anyone knows anything about amphetamine, there's no common sense or logic behind that. So my mum obviously would freak out. Now, they were trying to tell her that what it was because your hormones haven't set from a young age, what it does is actually level that out because your hormones aren't developed into adulthood, so it does the actual reverse charges. Now, anyway, I won't go into that yet, I didn't, but basically my mum didn't want me to do it, so she tried to hang on, and I was such a problem that... she eventually decided to put me on it in my later teens, like I think I was about 12 when I first started taking Ritalin. It was actually given to the school, and I used to get it from a special needs teacher, and he used to say to me, Mr. Carbethi used to say to me in the mornings, have you had your pill? And he'd give me my pill, and then I'd have one in the afternoon, have you had your pill? And then I'd have to take that as well. But he was always on my case about it. It was like something I had to do, because the way I looked at it then was I was a kid who asked questions. And in the schooling system, they don't want you to ask questions. They want everyone to be the same in uniform. So if you ask questions, you're a bit different, you're troublesome. And I would ask questions and I wouldn't take the silly answers if they didn't make any sense to me. So I'd end up becoming trouble. And obviously I had a lot of energy as well. So they didn't really know how to deal with me.
So they didn't like people at school asking questions so they could learn things?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you look at the education system, you only have to look at uniforms and, you know, things like that to understand that really, you know, self-expression and being a bit creative and being an individual is not really what the system wants. I mean, otherwise they would push more music and push more arts and things like that. I mean, now if you look at the curriculum, those sort of things are being completely taken out of the teachings, and they're extending the years that the kids are doing in school. You know, that's obviously for a reason. They want your working class, don't ask questions, get on with your job sort of people, and the ones that aren't like that are just called trouble, basically, and put to the side as troublemakers or suppressed with drugs, or, you know, you're sick, you're ill, because you want to know what's going on. You some things aren't fitting, so you want to ask questions, you know.
Okay, so we're talking about Ritalin and the education system. Now, did you perceive that then, or are you looking at that backwards now?
I always knew from a young kid that something was messed up. I mean, I have memories of crying, having problems. Mum always used to blame it on teenage growth hormones and things like that. But I don't think when a kid is asking you, why do we have to work to get a job, to get money, to die and give it all away and that's it? What kind of life is that to live? And that's what I used to say. Mum she used to say, I don't know, I can't really answer that, but you have to do it. And to me, as someone that questions something, that wasn't good enough. What do you mean I have to do something that just doesn't have any logical sense to it? There must be more. So I kind of knew, and I think that brought a bit of anger on, and, you know, a bit of confusion, as it would, because you want to know.
What about your family? What about your origins?
Okay, well,
because you've got.
I've got a mixture of blood. I've got so many mixtures of blood. Right. Okay. Well, from my mum's side, I've got English Irish. Yeah, so that's half my blood is English Irish.
English is a big mix of what.
No, just English Irish. But then, if you go to my dad's side, I have Portuguese, Chinese, and Ceylonese. Yeah, so that's three different into one half. I don't actually class myself from any of these countries because I'm human. That's always the way I see it. Well, when you come from that many places, I mean, you think to yourself, well, hold on a minute here. I'm not really either one or the other, am I? You know, I'm a mixture.
But
so
what
I'm
about
just
your
human.
blood type?
That is my blood type. That is what it is. It's literally a mix from all the different countries.
Yeah, but are you rhesus negative? Or
I wouldn't know. I've tried to get it done in a hospital and they tried to charge me money for it. And the doctors, I've tried to get it done from my own doctor. He tried to charge me £50 for it. I've always had problems with the doctors, actually.
If you wanted to go down to the hospital and give blood tomorrow, they would charge you £50.
I don't know about that.
You must give
I might be able to do it through giving blood, but I went to the actual doctor and just asked him if I could know my blood type, which they've obviously got on file, and he said for me to know that I'd have to pay £50, which I thought was ridiculous considering it's my blood and they've got the information, you know, so I wouldn't pay it. And maybe I should have thought of actually going. I didn't go to give blood, but then I kind of don't really agree with that either, because where's that blood going? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, one of those anyway.
Yeah. If you try and keep it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So okay. Do you have any stories, any information about your family, either side? Or
yeah, from my dad's side. I did a bit of research into my dad's side because my grandpa is like a man of many tales, should we say. He would always tell us tales from when we were younger, so you wouldn't know which was true and which wasn't. Well, it turns out my grandpa was actually Secret Service for the Brunei, or he was in the Army Secret Service. He worked for the Brunei Secret Service.
No, this is a big thing.
Well, yeah, it is a
Secret
big
Service
thing.
bit.
Yeah, I mean, he told me about some of the training they did there, like the mind training they did. He said a lot of it's mind over matter. I mean, my grandpa's like 96, and he always says, like, sorry, I've got that something wrong there. He's not 96. He's in his 90s. Basically, my grandpa said that if it wasn't just for his asthma, he'd live. I mean, he's kicking, you know, you speak to him and he's fully there, he's together. He said it's a lot to do with the mind training they taught him. Like, they would have them wear, like, heavy sacks, and then they'd have, like, poles up here, and they'd have to jump up and kick these poles. But once they got used to that, they used to fill the sack with more stuff. So eventually, they would be doing, like, abnormal things. Another thing they used to do was they used to feel like in your old Chinese films, they used to put like hot sand into things, and then you'd put your hands in it. I think it's to deaden the nerves in your hands. So eventually, you could hit, and you wouldn't feel anything over it. I mean, he's told me stories of that before. My grandpa was tortured by the Chinese as well. Like I think that was in the Singaporean War. Oh, good grandpa was tortured by the Chinese. He told me that.
And what's your grandpa's history again? Is it Chinese?
My grandpa's history. Well, my grandpa apparently it's Ceylonese, which was occupied by Portuguese. The Portuguese. Now, according to my grandpa, the reason we haven't got any connections with his family, which I only found out quite recently when I was digging around, was because he married outside of the bloodline. Now, that's to me, it did actually make me laugh, because I was like, this is just getting a bit silly now. You know, well, what do you mean you married outside the bloodline? Well, apparently because he married a Chinese woman, and it wasn't someone who was within their bloodline or authorised by the family, they disowned him. And then over a period of time, they started letting him back into the family again. But my grandpa had kids, and he was a verse person, as you could see. And those kids started marrying other women. Eventually, they just completely let go of him. But my granddad's title was Don Lenegade. That's Sir Don Lenegade. That was originally all our titles, apparently, that we could take. I could take that on as a Rodrigo, as from my family background. And apparently our family was something to do with the House of Lords, like some sort of history keepers or something, record keepers for the House of Lords in Sri Lanka. And I've typed it into Google and had a look, and you can actually come up with something for this Sir Don Lenegade, but I found it very difficult to get any sort of solid evidence on it other than the fact of what my grandpa and my family has said. But through my family, it's well known. You know, because we all had a laugh about it. I mean, I was like, Sir Don Lenegade, can you imagine that? That'd be hilarious. You know, I found it quite funny. You know?
Is that a British sir or?
I wouldn't know the difference, to be honest.
Is it to do with the knights of European knights, or?
I wouldn't know. It's Sri Lanka, but the way I look at it is it was occupied by the Portuguese. So, do you know what I mean?
So it would be connected to the Portuguese royal family of some... It would be connected
to the Portuguese, which is why, you know, maybe we got our Rodrigo. There's still a bit of thing about that. I mean, my grandpa said that the name was given to us by the Sultan of Brunei, because he used to go to school with him. Like, and then that was in Brunei, in Borneo. Like, he used to go to school with him. I think they fell out eventually, but apparently it was given to us by him.
So you've got some kind of intelligence connection in your family.
Yeah, definitely. There's some type of intelligence. I mean, you only have to look at my grandpa, and I mean, for someone that old, and I mean, apart from his asthma, and you know, he's quite, and mentally, he's always been very strong, very together. I mean, he came to this country. He's a school teacher. He teaches English kids and all sorts of kids English. He's not even from this country. He speaks like 5 different languages: Malaysian, English, Chinese, Singapore. You know, so he's a very intelligent mind sort of person.
And what about your immediate family then?
My immediate family, well, I don't really see too much of my father. I mean, I've met him recently, but me and my father, my dad left when I was 4, and we sort of seen each other up until the age of about 18, and then it was sort of like we cut off from each other. I think we sort of realised we were different people, really, and it's quite a hard one. My mother's still around, bless her. She's a lovely woman. Yeah, does a lot for me. Yeah, my mum's still around. Other than that, my grandpa, he's still around. My nanny just died recently. I've got untold amounts of uncles because my grandpa and nanny used to foster kids. So
did that bring you into the care home system or what?
It didn't bring me into the care home system, but I have been into the care home system. I was forced into the care home system, actually.
Okay, you were talking about your father and your immediate family. How did that work out?
Yeah,
what connections do they have with intelligence or anything?
Well, the only connection that well, actually, that's not true. I mean, my uncle Douglas was in the Navy. My uncle Ian was in the army over in the Falklands. So I think we got quite not a massive, but there's definitely some sort of military background there. But whether or not that's just my grandpa, you know, he served in the military.
That's a lot of military there.
Yeah, and well, Douglas was a captain of his ship in the Navy. So, and he actually, funnily enough, now I remember when I went back for the funeral from my granny, I mentioned something called the Philadelphia Project to him, just to ask him to see whether he knew anything about it, because I was reading a book. And he gave me a very vague sort of answer. I think it was sort of on the similar sort of lines, well, did it happen or didn't it happen? With a sort of grin, like as if he knew more than what he was laying on. But I didn't question him anymore about it. But yeah, I mean, I don't really want to, you know, reach for anything. But yeah, there's definitely some sort of military sort of background in that area. Yeah, you know.
So why were you interested in the Philadelphia experiment? Just like everybody else is?
Yeah, to me it's like, you know, I wanted to know what was going on. Being friends with James, I mean, you can imagine I've got brought up with James. I mean, we did many things together, and I sort of went away and come back, and then James talks about all this stuff that he's going through, and you know, I wanted to research. I was very much into researching in any way, but it was more on a spiritual level, shall we say, like a self-awareness level, rather than sort of what they call nowadays conspiracies, you know. It was more on like self-growth.
Okay, so when did you meet James, and what happened, and how did you get on together?
Right,
he described you as one of his best friends.
Yeah, well, he is, yeah.
But you also said that James got your mother onto heroin, is that right?
Not my mother, no.
Okay.
Basically what happened was that at one point in time there was a group of us that used to go around. This is when we sort of got together and stuff, and basically they all decided to do heroin together, and they got caught on it for a couple of years, so it was quite a long time. Now this is one of the reasons why I sort of left the country at the time, was because not only it was sort of doing I mean, you've got to think, these guys that we were doing it, we were like really close, all of us, you know, we were like brothers. And you know, I'm not going to lie, I never did it like all the time, but what I would do is once a month I would go around there, and I would do it with them and sit there and try and like communicate, because that would be the only time I'd see them. And if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have been able to sit round them. So I did it to try and experiment, you know, once a month with them, see how it went. But to be honest, it was kind of sickening, because they knew each other so well. We knew each other like brothers, and it got to the stage that where...
Okay, who was we at this time?
Well, James, I don't want to say too many names, because basically it's not sort of like out with one of them. But one of the guys was called James. Another guy was called...
I mean, is that James Casbolt?
Yeah, James Casbolt. Another guy was called Stephen. There's a couple more. There's three of us, but I don't really want to say their names, because I don't know if their family know about it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
right. Okay, so you basically... I mean, who got the drugs?
It was brought in from some Indian lads that we knew, that we had connections to. They sort of brought it in. I didn't with me, because I was the youngest sort of lad out of all of them. One of them tried to protect me, whether or not it was through greed or whatever. He didn't really want me involved in it because I was so young. So they sort of like pushed me away from it. So I didn't really know to the full extent what was going on until that after a couple of weeks. And I didn't, you know, I mean, if you want to get heroin in Cornwall, you only have to go to a town called Penzance, and it's flipping everywhere. You know, it's like it's strife there. you know, in Penzance. So, I mean, you can pick it up on the street down there. It's a well-known fact. That's why a lot of people don't like Penzance. It's got bad energy about it.
Do you think that's deliberate, to give that bad energy because of St. Michael's Mount?
Let's just say I know there's a lot of black magic and things going on around there, 100%. Because, well, James used to attend cults. Right, so.
Okay, well, let's focus on James. You know James, and how did you know him, and how did you get on? What sort of things did you do?
Right, well, the first time I sort of really got friendly with James, I think we were 16, and I got friendly through James through martial arts. I mean, we all smoked a tiny bit of weed here and there, so I would, I think I went round his house one night, and we were all chilling out, they had a smoke, and James was, at this time, it wasn't really well known, the UFC, like Ultimate Fighting Championships. It's sort of got really big now. When James was watching it, it was like more back in the day when they didn't use gloves and things like this. But what James has always been very good at is he seems to pick the best people that he can to learn from, and then he'll take the best person and then he'll study it. So what he did was he took this guy called Rickson Gracie, who was the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu expert on TV, who was basically walking through people in this fight, and he learned like what he taught through these videos. So one night I've gone round there and he's taught me this thing, and I've done really well. Like we've grappled basically, and I did really well. And from there he was a bit like, look, you know, I was really impressed, would you like to come training with us from now on? Like that. And you know I talk about drugs, but you got to remember as well is that we were really healthy at this stage. We used to train like twice a day, 5 days a week. Like, so we were heavily into martial arts. I mean, we were doing Thai boxing, kickboxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We were doing everything and just trying to take the best of what we knew, and then we would pressure test it. So, for instance, we'd fight each other at full contact with like a helmet and gloves on to pressure test the martial arts to see which techniques would work under street conditions. You know, so.
And did any of them work under street conditions?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
which ones?
Boxing was very, very good. But boxing, obviously.
Boxing isn't a martial art, as they would say.
Well, I mean, it's what you class as a martial art, isn't it? Self-defense.
Well, the martial arts are. I think most people would think there was imported from the Far East.
Well, no, that's not true to me. Well, martial art to me is something that's self-defense, isn't it? That's why people do martial arts generally. It's either self-defense or self-growth. You know, if you're doing it for self-growth, that's different. But if you're doing it for self-defense, to me, not all martial arts you could do. Not all martial arts are good. So you can't just say, oh yeah, this style's the best one or this style's the best one. I went into it heavily. Some techniques work, some techniques don't.
In other words, which ones are baloney and just for show, or to?
Well, I mean, you're talking.
Which ones are the real?
Well, with
real
me,
deal?
when they were doing like a lot of the karate and a lot of the taekwondo and stuff like that, which I did, it's a sport, and judo, it's a sport. Yeah, so in judo, like for instance, I can say like if you're grappling with someone that knows what they're doing in judo, 9 times out of 10 you'll be able to get off your back. You'll be able to get up off the floor because they don't train for that. They train as a sport. They want to keep you both people want to be on the floor in a real fight. No one wants to stay on the floor because if they don't know how to fight, they want to stand up, get on their feet. You know?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important.
So in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, this is where it was basically judo street fights. So what they would do is, when they're lying on their back and you're on top of them, they would tie their legs off so you couldn't stand up, and they would hold you. Whereas if in judo, you'd have an open guard, so you put the legs would be open. But that's a sport. If you do that to someone on the street, it's just going to stand up. You know, these are the sort of things like in karate. You know, if you stand there and you set your stance and you go through all the... By the time you've done that, you're going to be hurt. You haven't got time to set yourself like that. And especially, you know, I was brought up on the streets, really, I suppose. Not, you know, it's a small Cornish village, but it was quite violent when I was around in that day. And if you're in a pub and someone wants to beat you up and you haven't got any room to do anything, you can't all of a sudden throw this massive high kick or set yourself up. You haven't got time to do these things.
Well, this is one of the points that some critics of the martial arts say, that there's not a realistic...
No, it's not. But this is the whole point. What we did was we pressure tested it, and that's what I mean. So we put it under street conditions. You know, I mean, we were grappling on concrete. So I mean, you they're rolling around on concrete. We used to end up with bruises all over us. Like, God, I could tell you some stories. I ended up in hospital once through James. Actually, I was grappling with James. I was having an asthma attack while we were grappling, and he wouldn't let me quit. And he was like, "No, we're going to go through this, and you'll be all right." And I did actually do all right. I come out of it at the end, but by the end of it all, I had to go hospital because I'd used so much blimmin' air to struggle out of it. But I survived. It taught me a lot. That's pressure testing, because that's real. If that happened in the street, my mind wouldn't give, because I've already been in that situation.
Yeah. Martial arts. So you're getting really enthusiastic. You're having fights, or not fights, but you're training with James.
Yeah, because
could you tell us more about that, about him training and about how he was able to hold you down? What kind of role did he have in that?
James was absolutely lethal. I mean, to be honest, I've fought loads of martial arts. So I've trained with lots of martial arts. The guy was like uber talented. I think when we were grappling over 2 years, I'd probably beat him like twice in the whole, out of about 50 grappling matches.
And what sort of age are you this time?
I was younger, you see. He's a lot stronger than me at that time. I think I was 18. James is probably a few years older, like 3 or 4 years older, so he was probably in his 21. So I mean, yeah, when I was younger, I didn't really, because a lot of it's to do with technique then. I didn't have the technique to be able to beat him, As we got older, things evened out a little bit, but yeah, he was. So
you maintained a relationship with James?
Pardon?
Yeah, so when did all this start? You're 21 years old. What sort of age was he going into school?
We started training from about 17 to like maybe a bit, maybe 16 actually. It was probably a bit younger than that. I started training from about 16. By the time I was 18, I was starting to get to grips with it. I remember when I was 16, I was absolutely useless. When I first started, I remember I was useless. But right, to me, when you start looking at your health and you start looking at your body, and then you get into martial arts, the impact it's not just on your body. You start to realise that there's more, with everything else. So we weren't just doing martial arts. We, I mean, from the age of 16, I was also starting to study religions, because that was the closest thing that I knew to finding out what was going on. And James brought me into that as well. James gave me a book when we were 16 called The Tibetan Book of the Living and the Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche. And it was one of the best books. Well, I couldn't read at this time when he gave me the book, but I forced myself to read it because I liked it that much. So I took a dictionary. It took me like 8 months. I took a dictionary, took the book, and then I forced myself to read. And eventually I self-taught myself to read. But it was one of the best books I'd done, and it came from James, actually. And I remember...
So, I mean, that's a lot of philosophy, and that's a lot of heavy stuff. I mean, how did that work out?
I really got into Buddhism from the start, because it was like, to me, it made a lot of sense, But I didn't stay on one thing. What I did was I wanted to sort of see what was going on everywhere else. So I read books on Christianity and Muslim, just all sorts of different religions, And
so what was your motivation behind this?
Well, I wanted to know why we were here and what was going on.
You were doing heroin.
I mean,
had you given that up by then?
No, this was a bit later on. We'd been training for quite a few years, and we'd been out and doing. The heroin didn't really seep in until like the last couple of years, and it was only a 3 years that it was there. I think it was more like around when I started to hit my 21st, that we started doing that.
Okay, well, forget about the heroin. I mean, where did this impetus come from? James seemed to be the leader in this.
Yeah, he was very much the leader. James had a type of aura around him and this sort of leader quality, and he would, he helped me tremendously. Like, you do. I asked questions to him, and he'd say, well, he'd never tell me stuff. He'd just say, here, have a book, find out for yourself what you believe in this, see what you think. And then I would go off, read it, and then I'd be like, crikey, that's amazing, there's something there. He wasn't like sort of your brainwashing type, do you know what I mean? At that point, he wouldn't say stuff like that. He was very much sort of like, find out for yourself type of guy. He'd tell you, but he'd make you learn as well, He wouldn't just like take it from me. He'd give you books, and point you in a direction about something.
Can you tell us more about those books?
Yeah, crikey, I've read thousands of books, really. I think, 1,000 actually.
These seem to be pretty heavy books.
Yeah, very heavy books. I've been into all sorts of spiritual books. I've been into Palladian light work when I was younger. Well, that was a massive thing with me and James, actually. We got into that, looked at nature, spirits, all sorts of things.
Palladian light work, what's that?
Palladian light work is basically, there's apparently a group of extraterrestrials which are, have you ever heard of the Seven Sisters?
Only as a set of stars.
Pleiades, yeah.
Yeah, Pleiades.
Yeah, that's it. So apparently they're from there, and they're channeling through people, channelers, someone that communicates with them.
So how did this equate with you at this age? How did the extraterrestrial thing come up in your mind?
I don't actually know. All I know is that we just progressively got on and on. Basically, we looked at religion, and it doesn't take long to figure out it's basically based on fear to me. Right, that's my personal opinion. Don't want to insult anyone, but I looked at Christianity and Buddhism, and I was like, right, okay, you've got the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and then in Christianity you've got the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, and they pretty much mean the same thing. And then in all versions of Christianity, you've got some sort of Mary with a baby, in religion, and I'm like, you just go through it and you go through it and you go through it, and it literally looks like it's being written by one person, but the one massive thing that they've got in common is they're all fear-based. It's like, Christianity, God loves you. I've had this argument so many times with Christians, like, God loves you unconditionally, and I'm like, is this what you're telling me? And they're like, yeah. And I say, so that's part of your teachings? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm not a Christian, am I going to burn in hell for eternity? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. If he loves me unconditionally, where's the condition come in that I have to be a Christian? Oh, well, that was down to free will. And I'm like, no, if someone loves unconditionally, there's no conditions. That's it. You can't just start twisting things so they fit your own sort of, ideas. And it's the same with Buddhism as well. It talks about unconditional love and this and that, but then if you do bad, you're going to sit in the hell realm for eternity and have your eyes plucked out or burned or whatever. That didn't make no sense to me. I'm like, God loves unconditionally. He's not going to do that to his own people. You love unconditionally. It doesn't work like that. Same with Muslim. You can go on and on. I'm not going to sit here going on about the religions, but basically, in my opinion, from my experience, there was basically a lot of fear involved in it. So I suppose we started looking a bit more outward, into alternative
How did you wake up to this? What was the thing which woke you up to this fact that the religions are like that? What was your awareness? How did that
My
happen?
awareness of it was just reading and meditate. I used to, we weren't just reading, because you can only get so much from reading. We were meditating as well a lot. We were doing
What type of meditation?
Just your normal breathing meditations, light meditations, chakra meditations, all sorts, anything that we could do.
And James led you in this?
James was a massive... James, let's get this right. James, when I knew him, was a loving being. We've all had our problems, we've all had certain issues, but he was a loving being, and he knew what God was, and he understood what God was. Or if he didn't know, it was definitely in his mind. It was there. It's a possibility, And we were studying for that. He was all about self-growth. He was all about self-learning, And that he was very much into all of that.
Where did he get this from? Was he trained?
His mum was a Buddhist, I think, and I think a lot. That's where I think the first part of it may have come from his mother, because his mum was a Buddhist. So I think obviously James has picked up some material from her. He's a very intelligent guy, James. He picks up something. He'll see it. That's what it was like when we were younger. He was on it. He was on it like a ball. This life is what they're telling us. It's not the life. It's not really life, is it? It's kind of insane, really, what they tell you life is and what we're supposed to be doing. It doesn't make any sense to me, at all. They say that we're quite advanced and that we're, as a civilization, as a culture, we're getting there. But to me, we've done nothing but go backwards. Just because we're technologically advanced doesn't mean that we've morally set, or that that we're good human beings and we know exactly what's going on. I don't think to some degree we have a clue in that area.
So how did this feeling with James happen? I mean, how did you get on well? I mean, with the other guys.
I would say I definitely looked up to James. Definitely.
Was that because he was older? He's like an older brother.
Older, and I really like. He taught me so much, and he was a very clever guy. It's a lot of good energy about him, you know. And he was very like, he took and accepted me, and I was really young, you know, and like. He brought me into, like, we called it the crew. We had a crew at this time of lads, you know, that like we all hung around together, and you know, we were good lads. We had lots of mates, but me, James, and a guy called David, he used to question stuff all the time as well. We were like more into the spiritual side of it all. The others weren't really into that. There was more to do with the
sort of number?
How
many of you were you?
Just there was 6, 7 of us close, maybe 5 close every day, and there was 2 that used to turn up every now and again. So, you know, we had quite.
And this is St. Ives.
Yeah, this is St. Ives. Yeah, everyone knew who we were. I mean, people who see this will know who I'm talking about and stuff. You know, the only reason I haven't mentioned names is just for them, for their families and stuff.
So James. Tell us what happened with you and James, and you had you were getting wise.
Yeah, we used to go. Well, if you want to know what some of the stuff we used to get, well, we sort of figured out that when we were doing meditation and stuff, or if we wanted to capture something that was on an etheric level, on an energy level, we'd use a digital camera, and it seemed to like, for some reason, I don't know why now, but for some reason we used to get quite good shots of things like when we were meditating, we'd take a picture, and sometimes you'd see like the whatever you want to call it, magnetic field, the aura, the electrical field or whatever. You'd see it, and then if we were doing like certain meditations where we were pulling energy in from outside, from the top, you'd see like the extension of it, or you'd get like funny lights.
You'd be able to photograph.
Yeah, I've had some really amazing photographs. This is the thing, I lost so much of my stuff. I lost a lot of photos and stuff that I had. I mean, not like wow, you know, but some things that we did when we were outside. We took a lot of pictures of plants and things like that, and things came through like little faces and little like just. I think in a way.
You're saying that you saw little fairies, or maybe leading you on, or
that's what they call them. They call them nature
elementals.
Spirits. But then in my eye, all nature is energy, isn't it? Like everything. You know, everything's just energy. So if you're like putting your awareness on something and taking the picture of it, then maybe the awareness, you know, and the energy, it transforms into form and matter. So it's just energy expressing itself. To me, that's the way I look at it. I don't know whether it was a being or whatever, you know. It looked, in my eyes, it looked like it because it had like little face and stuff. But it you know.
Did it respond?
No, not that I know. We just took pictures. When I took the pictures, this is the funny thing actually. When we used to take the pictures, and usually nothing there, and then all of a sudden, you can ask James about it. He'll tell you about it. I think I've shown other people the pictures as well. Probably shown my mum, but she wouldn't have believed it. Yeah, and it's just things like that. So, from a very early age, whether or not that was true or not, we kind of realised that there was something else, you know, because we were getting like evidence. I mean, not just that. Right, well, ADHD, there's a big question with this for me, because I was classed ADHD. I was told that like I had to take these drugs because I was never going to be normal. I'll be able to function in society, you know. And
ADHD is what?
It's attention deficit disorder.
Yeah, okay.
It's when you can't keep your attention to one thing longer than 10 minutes. Well, if you can read a book, that's already classed that completely out the window, really, isn't it? You know, and if you can watch a film, you know. So really, it's just a lie to me. ADHD. What happened to me was. Do you want me to go into this?
Yeah, just explain it briefly.
Oh, I'll explain it briefly.
And the relationship with.
Basically, what happened to me was, when I was going really healthy, for like 8 months, I just stopped everything. Like, I decided no alcohol, no this, no nothing, no weed, no nothing. You know, just completely clean. You could eat clean, healthy. All of a sudden, after about 6 months, I would start vibrating. And what I mean vibrating, I mean I'd be sat there and I would physically start shaking. I could feel this like energy. It was almost like I'd have to jump up or I'd have to do something. I could feel this lemonade. It was awful. So it'd drive me nuts. I mean, it would get so strong sometimes. If I was talking to you here, this would start vibrating. My voice would start being really weird because of the vibrations. So I was like, well, if I go to the doctors, they're just going to give me a tablet. So I'm not going to do that one again. Maybe I should look at some alternative therapies and try and find out what it was, you know, rather than going straight to the Western doctors who basically just want to suppress everything, and then the problem comes back again after you stop taking the tablets or drugs. So I went to... Actually, I didn't do that at all. What happened was my mother got an email from a woman that was totally out of the blue. Her name was Gail. She was a spiritualist Cornwall leader, and my mum used to be into it. Well, she hadn't contacted her in about 2 years, and all of a sudden she sent her a video on a talk that was going to happen in 2012. And my mum wasn't interested, but I was. I was like, okay, I want to go because there's obviously people there that might be able to help me, and I'm quite a firm believer that if something's there and it turns up, maybe sometimes you should look into it. And it was quite a big coincidence. Don't really believe in that either, coincidences. But so I went there anyway, and funnily enough, it was supposed to have 250 people in it, and only 4 ladies turned up at the whole talk. And I was sat there. We were sat there watching the video. Watched half the video. Lady goes over, turns it off. She steps to the front and she looks at me because I'm like 18. I'm like the youngest person there. Everyone else was quite old. And she goes, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" Like, I think she was just curious. So I've gone up to speak, and I've sat down on the chair, started telling them why I was there, about this vibration, and it just went bang like that. And as I'm talking, my voice is cracked. I'm like shaking. Like, I'm going, look, this is it. This is what I'm talking about. Well, funnily enough, synchronicity or coincidence, whatever you want to call it, all the 4 ladies that were there were all healers, and they didn't even know each other. So they were like, "You know what that is, don't you?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Well, you're obviously a born healer." They said, "You need to learn how to..." Basically, it's energy that's coming in. You want to call it chi or whatever, or energy from wherever. Well, it's energy that's coming in, and you need to, like, you're like a battery that's just being constantly charged. And if you don't know how to channel that energy or get rid of it, you're literally going to have big problems. So we all sat round in a circle. They all held my hands, and it was basically just consciousness, you know, intention. And they told me to push it out through my hands and my feet, and within, I think it was about 3-4 minutes, I felt what they were talking about, and it was literally like a release. It just went. I was like, this is amazing. And then it wasn't like it was just a steady flow, you know, rather than just a constant like battering. It was a steady flow. So
you'd learned how to harness this?
Yeah. And
are you still able to do that?
Yeah, 100%. Do it all the time. I actually use it in martial arts as well, like with chi and stuff like that. Yeah, so... yeah, I learned how to harness it. I wanted to learn more, so I joined some group in Penzance called the Holistic Healing Course, which was basically, it's a recognised qualification that they were setting up a government scheme so you could become a healer within the National Health Service, because they were bringing in these new rules that nurses would have Reiki 1 and 2 and levels, stuff like that. This is what they were telling us at the time. So I went in to do this because I didn't really know anything about it. So I went in to study this, and studied it for nearly 18 months, and then decided not to do the final exam because I could see the corruption running through it and stuff like that. But I learnt a lot. Yeah.
What sort of corruption?
Well, I mean, you know, they were telling me that if I did a consultation with someone and that I'd spotted something that was bad that they were doing in their lives, like for instance taking some sort of medication or something that repetitively, or doing something that the doctor had given them or something like that, I couldn't actually mention it at all. And I thought that was really, like, for someone that's supposed to be a healer and care about someone's health, if someone's doing something that's hurting them, surely I should be able to, like, say, look, I think maybe you should talk to your doctor and ask him to give you a different tablet or something. But I wasn't even allowed to mention it. So to me, what it was doing was basically, it was saying, well, alternative therapy is nowhere near as good as Western medicine. You haven't got the authority to say anything about it.
Well, I think that's exactly what they. In other words, if you did do that, you get into
trouble.
You
get sued, and I had to have insurance to heal people. I was like, so you're making money off me as well, and you're telling me you're governing me. Well, let's get it right. What have the Chinese been doing for the last God knows how long? They've run the whole medical society on something called Qi and the Meridian line. Their whole medical society is totally different. You can't say like 1 billion people are wrong. They've been curing things we've been curing. So maybe it's us. Maybe we need to open our minds and mix the two together rather than going, we're the best. We've got this medicine.
Well, I think you'd be directly coming into direct conflict with the whole medical thing.
Well, of course, because it's money, isn't it? Let's be honest, right? Anyway, we won't go into that. Yeah.
Well, in the last 15 minutes, let's concentrate on James Casbolt and what happened after 21, and where did he go, and how long did you?
Well, after we got to 21, I think there's a lot before then, because we've had a lot of experiences.
Tell us about it then.
There's so many experiences, so many crammed into so many short spaces. It's really difficult to remember all these dates and stuff. But I know.
Well, start at the beginning and let us know.
The big experience I can remember, which really, really woke me up, and this is after doing months of Palladian light work. I was doing it for about 3 or 4 months, and things started going really weird in my house. Like the kids, I used to live with a woman called Sally and her kids, and she used to rent a house out, and I used to rent a room off her, and just weird stuff like the TV would turn on, or the stereo would turn on, and things like that, just for no reason, and it was happening all the time. And in the end, she actually had to tell me to stop doing this, whatever I was doing in her house, because it was freaking her kids out. Anyway, what happened was, within that time that had happened, me and James and another girl were walking down the road, and we basically got to the bottom of the hill, and there was these like 3 lights in the sky, like they looked like planes, or helicopters to me at the time, but they were flying in a perfect triangle like that, and they were just flying straight over the sky. Nothing, they could have been planes or helicopters, but then what happened next was they just stopped dead. Now, I don't know any crafts that could do that, and they just stayed there, and what they did was...
Were these the 3 lights together?
Yeah, no, they were like 3 separate lights, but they were in a triangle. They were separate ships, or separate whatever you want to call them. They were moving, and then all of a sudden they stopped dead, and the funny thing was, they turned into stars. Right, but they weren't stars. You could tell the difference between them. If you looked at a star and you looked at the object would have a funny sort of red and green, like sort of flashy glow to it, and the stars would just look normal. And I've been able to spot them ever since. Actually, I've seen them quite a few times, just up in the air, and then they'll move along and then change. But the funny thing about this one was, because this one was the big one for me, I couldn't really remember what had happened. I went away for a couple of years and came back. And I was talking to James about this experience we had. And all I remember is these stars happening, and I can remember we lost a bit of time, but I thought it was more like time distortion because of the shock of everything. I didn't really realise what had happened. Anyway, I was talking to James, and James comes out and he goes, can you remember the black mist? And I was like, what black mist? And he was like, the black mist. I was like, what are you talking about, black mist? He goes, can you not remember the black mist? I was like, no. And he was like, well, this black mist came down, and we all started screaming. And I was looking at him, and I honestly thought, in my head, I remember thinking, is he losing it? What's he talking about? I can't blooming remember this. Anyway, I went to speak to the girl that was there about it, and I said, oh, James is going on about this, and I had a grin on my face, and she said, well, can't you remember it? And I was like, no. And as she started explaining it, boom, it came back, and I remembered it. And basically what had happened was, before they turned, it was weird. It was like almost like a beam, but it was black. and it just covered it. It just literally took out everything. It was black, and then we grabbed each other, started screaming, and then I've got complete memory bank from there, and we lost like 2 hours. That's where the time had gone. So it wasn't like fear distortion.
So what was this thing, like a black goo in the air?
Honestly, it was like someone had hit a light switch, but it wasn't like all black at once. It sort of like came at like this to cover your peripheral. Do you know what I mean? It's like a beam, but black. Like it was like a beam of, I can't, that's the only way I can explain it. That's the only way I can remember it as well. So
what happened? Can you what
we just lost a lot of time. Like we lost hours, and I remember going back to James's house because I was so scared, and James's house looked directly over where this incident happened, and these star things didn't move the whole night. They were there. We were looking at them. The funny thing is, the house that I was doing all the work in, because I didn't sleep there that night, I went back in the morning, and the woman's come downstairs, and she's like, what happened last night? And I was like, well, what do you mean? She goes, were you locked out? I was like, no, I went to stay at James's. She goes, well, someone was ringing this, we had this secret doorbell no one knew about, which went up to the top room for the guy that lived in. She goes, someone was ringing the doorbell all night, like that. And I was like, well, it wasn't me, like that. And she goes, I woke up with some guy in my room, and he wasn't a normal guy. She said he was about 8 foot tall. And she said I was paralysed with fear. And she said, because she sort of, I think she knew what I was up to in the house with this Palladian light work. And she goes also, because we had a house full of tenants, she goes, one of the tenants' room, stuff had been moved out when it was locked when they were asleep and put into someone else's room, like under the bed, like, and it wasn't even there, and it was locked. Just really weird, strange, bizarre stuff. I mean, it was unexplainable. I just thought, well, it's too much to be a coincidence. Maybe someone's having a laugh, but then to happen on the same night that all this stuff happened, it was really weird. And I mean, it's even weirder to think that they're moving stuff around. So I don't know, but I think that was the last time I started playing about with Palladian lightwork, to be honest. After that, I was a bit like, okay, well, this isn't for me, you know? I'm not into this, like, because it was done without sort of me really knowing what had happened. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we've asked you. It was just boom, like that, all of a sudden. And I'm like, well, I wasn't very comfortable with it.
So was it an entity or a human being?
I have no idea. I mean, like, as I said, this is just information that I'm giving. That's my experiences. I don't really want to. I could put my spin off from what I feel, but then, you know, it's just my spin off, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It could be.
Well, what is your spin off on this then? What's your personal feelings for this?
I believe it could be either government or extraterrestrial. That the ships. And then the other stuff, it could be all sorts, couldn't it? You know, you're playing around with energy, you open up energy things, and, you know, you're doing stuff in the house, you're saying words that you're not really sure of, and things like that. You know, you're doing, it could be anything, it could be a spirit or whatever, you know. No, that's the way I look at it. Like, could be anything that happened in that house.
So that wasn't a craft. I mean, are you talking two incidents here? You're talking about the black mist.
Yeah, that happened. Well, it was happened exactly the same night. This is why I'm mentioning it, because it was so weird. Because I went to stay at someone at James's house. You know, I was that scared. Like, and then it all happened in the same night.
So James's house was some kind of a refuge then?
I was terrified. I'd just been through like a massive ordeal. It was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that before. I couldn't even remember the black mist, and I was terrified. Those ships didn't move. They were still there. Like in the morning, until about 6 in the morning, I could still see them up there. And then they just disappeared when we went to bed. Well, we went to sleep, woke up, they weren't there.
So that means they weren't stars that you were looking at, because by that time they would have moved.
100% they weren't stars. Stars don't fly from one end of the sky like that all the way across, stop, turn, and they weren't stars when they did this. The only time they even resembled a point of stars was when they stopped and changed in the sky. And then they just resembled a star. I mean, then they looked more like a space station or something like that, because they were just like red, green, like you could just see them. But you could, let's put it this way, if you seen them and you weren't sure about what you were looking for, you'd mistake it for a star, 100%, without a doubt, you know? I've seen the same things before.
Stars move.
Not like,
I mean, stars were movable a period of time.
These were fast, and they were perfect, and they didn't look like stars. They weren't. They were a different colour. They were like, I think they were like yellowy orange at the start or something. They were just I knew that they looked like helicopters. Yeah, and they were moving. They were silent. They were moving at speed.
But helicopters are a hell of a different thing to lights in the sky that never move.
They were like that. Well, that's what I thought. Logical brain. I've never seen this stuff before. I was going, maybe they're helicopters. You know, we were trying to make sense of it, and then all of a sudden they just stopped dead in the sky, and these lights changed, and they looked like stars. You know, that's the thing. They like flipped, and then they had the star sort of quality, but they were. If you look really closely, you could see like a different colour spectrum. That's the only way that I could describe it.
So is this your first UFO
That was
event?
my first major UFO experience, yeah.
And it was with James?
And that was with James, yeah. And that's 100%. I put my life on it.
And what was James's reaction to this?
To be honest, I can't really remember. I remember we were all scared with the black mist because we were all hugging each other, screaming. And I remember like he was into me going back to his house. I mean, we used to chill out together all the time anyway, and he was like a bit shaken by it, I think, you know.
Did he ever mention it later?
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. We talked about it quite a lot. You know, it's not like you would, wouldn't you? If you had an experience like that, it'd be like, oh my God, you know.
And were you able to recover any further memories?
I had regression done on it, but I don't want to go into it.
Was
I had
it hypnotic?
regression from a therapist up near Plymouth, and she was a qualified therapist, but she didn't put you under. You were like conscious,
yeah,
and then she'd pull you through it, and I got lots out of it. Yeah,
such as.
This is it, you know. I'm going to go into it. It just sounds wacky, right? Okay, basically, what I recalled from that when I was talking to her was that this black mist, and then I went up, like in this like black mist. We ended up. We were all frozen, like literally. We couldn't move, and we were like stood there. There was James, this girl, me. And this like colonel in a green like fucking suit came towards us, like he looked like the typical sort of cartoon marine that you would get, but a person in a green sort of suit, and he came up telling us that it's all alright, everything's okay, don't worry about it, we'll look after you, blah blah blah. But during this, my therapist decided to go into this green guy for some reason. I don't know why, but she was like, "Can you see what's is this green guy who he says he was?" So as I've gone into the green guy, it turned out apparently to be a projection, and it wasn't a green guy at all. It was actually a grey behind him, who was talking to us and using a hologram as an image to make us feel safe. And that's all I got to, and that's all I can remember from that one. But I don't know if that happened or not. As far as I'm concerned, I've been into UFOs, I've been into spiritual stuff for a long time, so my imagination's probably quite good. So but the funny thing is that this is the thing, I can remember these things, these regression sessions like they were last week, you know. So the memories haven't like faded. So I've made something up.
How long ago were they?
It's over 2-3 years ago.
Oh, so I mean relatively recent.
Yeah, recent like that. Yeah, I mean the regression was about 3 years ago. Yeah.
When was the actual event?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Crikey, that was like talking over 10 years. Yeah, over 10 years, 11, 12 years, something like that. Long time.
Well, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to continue on with James and how he got to where he got today. Okay, Jan, you were talking about one of the first UFO experiences that you'd had with James. Could you tell us some more about those?
Yeah. Well, this one, it wasn't, I don't know if it was extraterrestrial or government on it. It wasn't kind of a ship, but it was very weird because the place that James used to mention all the time in a lot of his posts, and he had a lot of his pictures, was a place called Man's Head in Cornwall. Man's Head is basically, it's just off the coast near Porthminster. This place is... it was shut off to the public quite a few years ago. You can walk around there, but they stopped people camping there and stuff like that. There's quite a few signs there from the Department of Defence saying, you know, you can't go near here, you can't go near there. It's a very odd area. Anyway, James used to be quite... James used to like to push like the boundaries of sort of like common sense, I used to call it, because he'd like to go down there at night time and take a walk, you know, and I used to be like, look, if they're picking you up from around these places, surely we really don't want to be going down there. But it's typical James, always the same. So one night he's like, do you want to go to Man's Head for a walk? It's pitch black, there's no lights there. I'm like, okay, we'll go out there. You know, it's a regular kind of thing for me and James at that point. So we took a walk out there. We basically walked past the bowling green, walked past round by the bench and carried on walking, and there's like an old mine or quarry there, which a couple of these signs are up over. Really weird sort of energy around it. As we come round there, it was almost like someone hit a light switch and this big luminous light just lit the whole area up. Me and James have just gone like that and just sort of started to basically leave. I couldn't remember much about it, but this light, I mean, it wasn't normal. It was huge, and it lit up and it came out of nowhere. It was almost like people didn't want us in that area. Or whatever it was. So we've done one. Apparently James has written stuff about it before. He said he had recovered memories of it. I can't remember anything, but it was very, very odd and it was very strange. That was one experience that we had. I have had some regression on that experience. James gave me some regression on that experience using techniques pulled from Scientology. I'm not sure if he mixed anything else with it. That was pretty much James's style. He would take bits of everything and then try and combine them together.
What did you get from it? Is that how you remember what you just described?
No, that's proper memory. I can still remember that to this day. I didn't actually think anything else happened, but James did some regression on me afterwards, and this is like a long time afterwards, you know, it was about a year or something afterwards. And when he did the regression on me, I mean, as I said, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't really believe in it, but if you want, I can say that what happened. In the regression, it was basically a ship pulled us, this light had come from a ship, pulled us up into a ship. I can't remember what happened to James. It's sort of like we got separated. I remember being put in a ship. There was like pods to the right of us with an egg in it, like an incubation pod with like steam, and there was like a funny sort of being next to me. I was all in black. I had a funny suit on. It was really weird. There's a lot of dashboards. From what I could gather from when I was being there was a lot of panic to do with these incubation pods. They were like trying to look after the thing inside it was alive, and one of the beings was getting angry because something had happened, and I was like pushed towards like a keyboard system, and that was basically pretty much all I could remember about the experience.
What sort of keyboard system, and what was the creature?
Just a lot of lights. The creature, I can't actually like fully remember, to be honest. I just remember it being a creature and being very lanky. I had more then, but that sort of memory is fading a little bit of it all. The thing that stood out for me was the incubation pods more than anything else, and the fact that they sort of knew who I was. This is how it felt, and that I had some sort of I was involved in it, like as in they knew me. It wasn't like it was
Were
weird.
you a human still, or
Yeah,
were you inside
as a human. I was in a black suit. Yeah, as a human. Funnily enough,
what did these pods look like?
they were like huge, like tubes, like clear, like that. They had like smoke going through them, and there was like it looked like an egg in the massive, you know.
I mean, what sort of size of a soccer ball?
Like that. It was like a huge egg. It was like, I don't know what to compare it to. I've never seen an egg that big.
I mean, a rugby ball?
Yeah, it was probably about a bit big, a bit wider. Do you know what I mean? It was an egg, so a rubber ball's like a different shape, but it was a bit wider than probably the same sort of height if you stood it on end. And that's all I can sort of remember was that we were doing that, and I got a feeling that we were sort of doing that, and then the main purpose was some sort of tracking or something. I can't remember quite what it was, but I remember I got a really strong sensation there was a bit of tracking going on.
What do you mean by tracking? Tracking of what?
I don't know. I just remember that it was a feeling that I got, that it was something to do with these eggs. They were going mad about them because something had happened.
No, they are what?
This thing was really angry, and it was shouting. There was something else there, and it was like not shouting, but you could see the body language. They were in panic. And then over these things, and then they pushed me towards a keyboard. I did something on the keyboard, or not a keyboard. It was like just lights, big lights and stuff. That's sort of all I can remember. It's very foggy. It wasn't as clear as the other memory I had. The other memory was super clear. This one was tiny bit foggy. And then I remember getting a sensation about tracking, and that was it really. Afterwards, I can't even remember how we got down, but that was all I sort of pulled from that memory. And this is another thing as well. That's why I'm not totally 100% sure that it even happened, because I was thinking, well, that'd be really easy to create in my mind, you know.
And this all happened at Cornwall?
Yeah, this happened in Cornwall. I mean, I know Cornwall is such a small place, but there's something... I know this sounds stupid, but I've got friends around me who've been... I can't mention any names now because they haven't even gone public, and the person's still digging to see what's going on. But she's kind of found out that her bloodline goes right back to like some sort of Jesus bloodline, she reckons, and she came down, she was not adopted, but they came down, they were pushed into Cornwall really fast, and that her grandma actually worked for Walt Disney. And this is the common theme that you'll find. This is in our circle, but you know, this is a friend in our circle, like and I'm like, it's a common theme that we're finding in our circle. It's almost either we've been drawn together or we've been put together. I don't know, but it's really odd how people are finding out all these things to do with their background, and there is some sort of connection there, you know, like that. So Cornwall's a very odd place. And
this precisely is what region of Cornwall?
I believe it's the whole of Cornwall myself, because I mean, for me, it's going to be St Ives and where I live, because that's where I've had the experiences. But I know for a fact that other people have had experiences all over Cornwall. I mean, you only have to go onto the internet, Google and research things, and you'll find all sorts of things that people are talking about, that they've had experiences around Cornwall, you know. I mean, for instance, it was one thing I was going to talk about, if a possibility why Cornwall could be so special, or not special, but why it is like that, is if you look at Machu Picchu in Peru, there's a big place there. I think they call it the Crystalline City, and it's basically a crystal mountain which looks a bit like a pyramid with a city around it, and it's got tremendous amounts of granite in it. Now granite's got crystalline quartz in it, and if you get a lot of granite together, it will create spaces like channels, and then over a period of time that will crystalline like veins. I think they call it veins. If you go onto Wikipedia and click granite, you can look at what these terminologies are for it. But basically, crystals are, as everyone probably knows already, actually, quartz crystal is quite a high technology, and it's in all electrical equipment. It's on motherboards as well, including gold. You know, and so it's a frequency and a conductor. It's perfect for like plasma and things like that. You know, energy, same sort of principle.
Well, let's get back onto your personal experiences. Tell us more.
Well, that's one. That's one experience. Another experience that I had personally. This is one before I left to go to France. I'd come back basically to see James, and we were talking, and I've always been a bit like, I knew I had stuff to do, but I was running away from it a little bit because I wanted to do other stuff. I wanted to experience other things at the same time. You know, when you're 18 years old and you're going around telling people what you feel that is happening, and people are looking at you like you're completely nuts, eventually you sort of get to the point where you're like, well, you know, these people are going to wake up, so that's the way I felt, so I'll just go and do whatever I need to do and experience what I need to experience, and then come back and do it anyway. The big moral of the story is I was taking a coach to go catch basically you go to London, you catch a coach from there for like 2 days up to France. Well, on this coach there, I remember physically saying it and mentally saying, look, if there's anything out there, just show me, and I promise you I will turn my life around. Not quite now, but I will. As I said that, and no word of a lie, I think we were near an airport or something, because this plane flew past, and I'm looking at it, and then all of a sudden I see like a little ball, a silver ball, classic UFO, following behind it, but like this. Then it sort of goes behind a cloud, and it comes out really fast the other end, and then the plane comes out, and then another ball was right behind it as well. So it was like 2 balls, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? That I'm looking at, I'm rubbing the window because I'm thinking, is it Steve? You see, I'm quite like, I always question things because I'm like, you know, until I'm sure myself what it is, so I'm like rubbing the window thinking, is it like that? And as I'm doing that, all of a sudden this like orange, like stretchy light goes like this across the sky right near the ball, and then just literally does that and then disappears. And that was the one for me that made me think, well, I've got to do something about, or go public with it eventually, or do something about it like I said I would do, you know. But I did go off and do my own thing for a few years before that happened. I believed that when it was time, then I would go public with things, you know. And
is it time now?
I think it's the time for everyone that's had any experience to go public with it, because I honestly believe that now, you know, there's so many of us that we're more and more becoming not just the minority. So on an energy level, if people talk about it and on an awareness level, it will actually help. Like it's the group consciousness. I don't know whether you've ever heard of the 100 monkey syndrome, and that was a scientific thing.
Yes, yeah.
So
it's a phenomena which is how monkeys on one island were able to learn something but transferred the knowledge to other monkeys.
Yeah, so you only need a percentage.
So they must have had some kind of telepathic or empathic.
Well, it's consciousness within a group, isn't it? It's like unified, you know. If a certain amount of people have a certain amount of awareness, eventually it will have a knock-on effect over the population. Now, if people are, you know, the truth itself holds a certain frequency and vibration. When it's spoke, it registers with people. So if people keep talking about their experiences and coming out, eventually, just from that happening, it will have a knock-on effect. And I mean, I got into this 15, 20 years ago, and I used to speak about things then. People used to laugh at me. Now I can actually speak in a pub about it, and I will do as well, speak openly about it, and people are actually starting to not be like, you're crazy. They're starting to question things and going, possibility. So that's a massive leap in consciousness, you know. And I do believe this is the time that people need to...
Well, what about these other experiences you've had that continue? Because we want to get on to the other people you know as well.
That was the last experience that I can remember that was like that. I mean, I've seen lots of lights in the sky. I've always seen, like, you know, those star things that I said that I've seen. The reason that I know that they're definitely ships is because I've seen them lots of times. You know, I look up at the sky and I'll see them in the sky. I can see the stars, and then I'll see a couple of them around, and I've seen them move. I've seen them change, move, and then go back into star form. I seen one in Geneva when I was with my mother, out of a hotel window, and I was screaming at her to get out of bed, but Mum wouldn't get out of bed. She just thought I was going crazy. But I've seen those quite a lot. I've seen balls. You know, when you...
What are they?
Pardon?
What are they?
What are they? I don't know. They're huge, I would say. That's all I know. And I don't know whether they're government, extraterrestrial, but they definitely exist. I don't know, you know, maybe they're massive space stations or something, but whatever they are, they're there, and no one's talking about them, or no one's, you know...
What are they? What they look like? Can you describe
them?
They
literally look, at the start, they'll look like a star, and then when you stare at it, if you look close to it, it will go reddy green. You can see a different colour there. It's not a twinkle little star, it's a different type of twinkle, yeah? And you can spot them. But then obviously if you're looking at them, you could think, oh yeah, it's a satellite, it's this or that. But then if it stops in the sky, it's just there, and then all of a sudden it goes like this, it changes, you can see it change physically, and it starts moving quite fast, and then it stops again and changes back. That's weird. You know, and when you get 3 or 4 in a formation like I had that night, that's even more weirder, because that says that there's more than, you know, it's unified. They're in the sky. There's 3 or 4 of them all at the same time. It sort of knocks out satellites.
Are you saying there's 3 or 4 individual objects or one object?
Yeah, 3 or 4 individual objects. That was the first experience I had. It was 3 objects, remember, in the sky, triangular. Yeah, and they were separate, and then they all did exactly the same thing. So
getting back to your experiences with James, you said you were several...
One of the biggest ones I want to speak about with James, and this happened after I think he got back from America.
So you're talking quite recently now. You're talking in 2010.
Well, this was recent. James used to talk to me a lot about it. This ship that he used to say was his. I mean, I used to be completely... I've heard all sorts of stories from James. I take it like a pinch of salt, you know, because I'd never know what was truth or what was, you know, in James's mind, you know, it happens. He's seen so much, so I can understand, like, he's going to be like that. So I was always sort of like trying to stay level-headed. And he told me of this ship that he owned, or he had some sort of telepathic communication over. And he goes, it comes around about this time every day. We were stood on Windsor Hill on his terrace. I'll never forget this, actually, because it's such a big one. And he was going to me, oh yeah, the ship turns up. And I was like, what do you mean it turns up? And I was like laughing, you know. I was going, you can't be serious. He goes, no, it does. And I'll... What
time of day is it, or night?
Oh, this is like 7 at night on a summer night. So the sky is completely blue. It's not even night time, you know. And we stood there and looking up, and then all of a sudden this blimmin' gold-like light, and it just literally went like this, started going along the sky like that. It stopped dead, and then just gone. I mean, it was so quick. It was like, it looked like it was a trail, like a little trail, and then it was gone. But I mean, the flight, the speed of it, the colour, it was nothing. It was so advanced technologically. I was gobsmacked, because it was the first time. I mean, I've seen things, but it was the first time that someone's turned around to me and gone, oh, you know, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And then it did happen. And I started thinking to myself, no, he can't be in control. You know, your brain starts thinking about all this stuff then, because you're thinking, crikey, is he in control? How did he know it was coming? Do you know what I mean? That's like... And he said he used to do it all the time. And the one thing I know about James, he's not a malicious liar. He wouldn't just make stuff. Well, he wasn't I don't, that's the way I look. When I knew him, he wasn't like that. He wouldn't do.
I mean, this is the whole crucial point about why we're having this conversation is to how much of James's stuff is just imagination or borrowed or.
You got to look at it like this, Miles. The way I look at it is that these people are really brave people. They've obviously been through something, so something's happened. That's it. Simple as that. Whether or not you want to say it's this, that, I know something's happened, and that's unexplainable. These people are trying to get to the truth, and God, they're digging through a minefield. I mean, James himself is, to a point, I think he's put himself in danger, as much as possible to try and get to the truth, and that is dangerous, and you are going to pull out mistruth. But at the end of the day, we all know something's going on. That's why we're all researching it and looking into it. So rather than arguing at each other and going, this is this and that's that, and that's not right, this is that, should look at it for what it is. We're looking for the truth, all of us. It's
okay. Let's get more of these experiences you've shared with James.
Well, I mean, that was one of the major ones. Crikey, I suppose I should go. When I first got back from France. And this is you have to remember, as I said, when we were into UFOs and stuff, and we were into spirituality, but it wasn't like we'd only gone so far as in we were doing a bit of Palladian, like doing spirituality, meditating. When I come back from France, I came to see James, and I remember him. He sat down, and he goes, "I've got something to tell you." And I was like, "What's that?" He goes, "I found out I was an agent." And I mean, what do you say to that? So it was like
an agent.
Yeah, he said, "I'm an agent," and I was like, and he started telling me, and I was like, "Yeah, but you were with me, James." And he was like, "No, it doesn't work like that." So he's trying to explain how it all works. Very confusing. I didn't really understand it.
What kind of agent?
He said that he was an agent that was working for the government. He said that basically what had happened was, this is common knowledge, by the way, James's dad is a drug dealer, or was a drug dealer, so anyone that doesn't believe that you can go into St. Ives and ask people, they'll tell you about it. Whether
You're
or not
talking about his Casbolt?
Yeah, it's Peter Casbolt. We all knew my mum knows, everyone knows, it's common, but they think it was on a really low level. No one really knew. I mean, he was off to Spain, he was all over the place. The guys served time, quite a lot of it, but they were all shorter sentences, But
what do you mean by short sentence? Weeks,
well, they put it this way: from what James was saying, he's been caught. He was not dealing in small lots. He was running factories. Not like small time. So you get caught for something like that, you expect to be locked away for a hell of a long time.
But he only got short sentences.
Well, he did. I think he did small sentences which led up to a long time, but I don't think he did any full massive stretch. Not for someone that's caught with a factory's worth of, say, weed or something like that. You're going away for a long time. It's not you're caught with a factory's worth of weed.
I mean, what do you mean a factory? What sort of size?
Well, from what I can imagine,
what factory of what?
From what I was told, well, a lot of it, from what I can gather, but I don't. This is from what James has said and stuff like that. To me, it was just solid, but I don't know whether he was dealing in anything else. Like that's like hashish, like solid form. It's not like green or grass. And he was dealing in big blocks. And this is proof in the pudding, actually, because James's dad used to send me and James, when we smoked, he used to send us like a bar like that in the post using registered postal order. So we had to go and sign for it in the post office, and we used to pick it up like once a month, and we used to use it.
And it doesn't stink, and I'm sure they didn't find out what was
in it. Do you know what I mean? You tell me, Miles. I was always a bit like, how the hell this is happening? And he said, it's common. Apparently it's done quite a lot, and it's only not done quite a lot now because of the dogs they've got involved. But to me it was very odd. I'd never heard of it before. So
just go and pick up. And what sort of value would that have been?
What, on the street? Well, you're talking half a bar would have been, like, back in those days, probably about £400 if you sold it in one lump. If you sold it separately, God, I don't know. I could probably do the maths, but it's a lot of money. It's not a small amount. If he sent you a bar, if you sell it in one big lump and you're getting £400 for it, and someone's got to sell that on and cut it up, then they're going to make money off it, aren't they? So, and it's going to be quite a lot. You're talking, it's probably like doubling up in that way.
Yeah, maybe £1,000.
Probably about say £700 just to be like, on the safe side, but. Like if you got, say, sometimes we get whole ones, you know, and that's like 9 ounces, you know, in each ounce.
How big's a bar? Size of a brick or a bar of chocolate?
Well, it's 9 ounces.
Yeah.
So it's like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's a big package. I mean, you're sent once a month, being sent through the post, recorded delivery. You'd think someone would have their be caught. It was happening for a year or so. So I mean,
what's this MI6 claim that James was an MI6 drug agent for his father?
Well, basically, it's pretty simple, really. James said to me that it was like he didn't know what he was doing. When he went to see his dad in London, his dad used to just say to him, "Could you pop this parcel here or pop that parcel there?" And it was a small parcel, you know. James just did it, and then apparently, how James found out was on his dad's deathbed. Like his dad told him on his deathbed that he'd had connections to the CIA and selling drugs for the government, basically.
What happened with his father, his adopted father, or his foster father?
Peter?
Casbolt.
He died. I don't know what of. I think it was something to do with heroin, or maybe, but I know he died.
I mean, was he bumped off?
I don't know, Miles. I couldn't say.
I mean, is this why James Casbolt now wants to be known as Michael Prince?
No, that's totally different. Well, there's, you know.
And what about his mother, his adopted mother?
Well, this is it. I don't know. Kate, I've always known as James. There's very big confusion here because I'm not sure. James, right? This is James has said to me that basically. The time that I was with James Casbolt, it wasn't him. That was his clone most of the time. It was very rarely that he'd be put back into that body or have that be that
what
person.
What exactly do you mean by a clone?
Well, he would say it was just basically they'd clone the body and then they'd put a body in the place of him, so it would be like a representation so people wouldn't miss him, and then James would be off doing other stuff. This is what he used to say to me. That never really I mean,
surely you would have spotted his behavioural differences, or did you?
There was behavioural differences without a doubt in that time frame that I can remember. He used to do weird stuff, like sometimes.
What do you mean by weird?
Just too much mind, you know. Well, one time we were sat there, this is like within the 2 weeks I was going to tell you about, that I stayed in his house. This is when it was getting really, really bad.
And what time are we talking about here? 2000?
This was just as I got back, and basically he was losing. It's about 4 years ago. It was about 4 years ago, and it was getting really bad.
So 2009.
Yeah, it was when things were at the height. This is when he started posting on Avalon, and he was getting, you know, I think he hit on something because basically there was just, we were sent death threats, we were sent pictures of assassins, like by this Ray Gordon dude who apparently worked for Henry Kissinger, and like all that sort of stuff.
I mean, you mentioned that you had some of the team had connections with Henry
Kissinger.
Henry
Kissinger, I know for a fact that James was blowing the whistle on Facebook over Haley's dad, you know, and Haley's dad is a massive, he's got shares in companies of Henry Kissinger. I mean, if you look at...
Let's just try to get the chronology right here. James has already had a daughter by his previous girlfriend.
Yeah, that was Kim. Yeah,
the girlfriend was Kim.
Now that I would say James would think that was his clone, or say that was his clone, because that's not James, is it? He would say that he was off somewhere else doing missions. This is the way I think.
Because I interviewed him with another girl around in Truro, around about, I don't know, 2005.
I don't know who that is. I haven't got a clue. I didn't really watch a lot of James's stuff like that because I had it first hand. No need for me to watch stuff. You know, when you've got a mate who's telling you stuff. Yeah. And the thing is, like. I always tried to keep myself grounded because...
No, I mean, what I'm saying is the person that I interviewed, the clone.
I don't know, probably. You have to ask him that. I'm not really sure. The way he talks about it is if it was James Casbolt, the chances are it wasn't him. That's what he said. He used to tell me, if you knew me when I was James Casbolt, you don't know me. He goes, we know each other from somewhere else. You know, he goes, but the real James Casbolt, he's gone. That's what he used to say to me.
And when did he say that? When did he start saying that?
He said that long. This was when he was like, basically he was trying to, he said it was like two alters living in the same body. One was programmed, one was real. So he had to defy, he'd always have to try and get, he thought Michael was his real self. So he would struggle between the two to define which memories were real, which memories were implanted. He would say that the memories that are implanted are of James Casbolt, and the other one is him, Michael. Now, I'm not too...
No, but when did all this happen, the implantation?
Crikey. It was going on since when I got back from France, the first thing I noticed was James, because James had been to Clouds, and I don't know if he'd mentioned it.
Yes, he mentioned it.
Yeah, James had been to Clouds, and he told me when he got back.
Clouds is a rehabilitation centre.
This is when it was really bad, because James got back from Clouds and he was like, "Can you please stay with me for a couple of weeks?" He said, "It's going off, and I can't handle it." And I was like, "Okay."
Like what?
Well, just harassment. Like, they would, for instance, send a helicopter over the house and just hover there, or send him an email from this Ray Gordon threatening his life. They sent us a blimmin' picture of this guy. He was like, he had a cowboy cap on and he had the Illuminati triangle like this on it, and he was fat. Like, really fat, and he was like, "Oh, this is our assassin, he's going to come and kill you." And we were just like, "What? This fat guy's going to go?" We just started making a joke out of it, because that's what I said to him. I said, "Look, the only way you can deal with this really is you got to put a bit of humour in it, or you're going to lose your mind." You know what I mean? You have to take it with a pinch of salt. You've already done what you're going to do. But it was happening, I'll tell you that now. Whether or not James was lying or not, that was happening, and I was there and I seen it. And he was getting messages and emails from this Ray Gordon dude saying, "I'm part of Henry Kissinger, P1, blah blah blah. I've made you famous. You've turned on us," and all this sort of stuff. Because James, basically, he'd be given information and told not to release it, and James would just release it. He wouldn't give a shit. Just put it out there.
Yeah, but he'd be giving it to me then.
He'd be giving it to anyone on the internet. He used to post Project Avalon. He posted so much stuff. A lot of that did come from people who claimed to be intelligence services. You know, one of the guys I wanted to speak to, because I was worried about James. The guy wouldn't speak to me at all. He was the guy in America. He actually ran away, literally wouldn't want anything to do with me. I think he knew that I was going to go, "What the hell's going on here? What's this? What's that?"
And what was going on here?
Well, he kept telling James like stuff about this looking glass and, you know, things like that, and saying that, you know, it's good, and like things, you know, that there is no evil in the world. It's just a computer that's doing it, and stuff like this. And
what do you mean by stuff like this?
Well, you know, to me, it was feeding in the story that he wanted him to know, and he was made, you know, who is this guy? He's part of the Illuminati. I'm not going to trust him as far as I confirm, and he's messing with one of my mates. Do you know what I mean? So, and I told James, I said to him, "Why are you even bothering with these people in the intelligence community?" I said, "Obviously, you know, if they don't want you to know, they're not going to let you know it. And if it's someone that's really good, get them to release it themselves." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Well, why are you giving it to some poor lad who's obviously got enough? And if you really, really care, release it yourself. You're going to have more clout than he is, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? That really angered me a little bit, because it's a friend. But anyway, we won't go into that. But I'm just saying, without a doubt, James, when I was there, he was getting harassed. So they were spending money, and if he was just talking lunacy, then why would they even bother? Do you know what I mean?
What brought him to Cloud's house?
It was, well, he got, remember I told you he got caught on heroin, yeah? When I went to France and come back, he'd obviously gone to Clouds to rehabilitate.
And how long were you in France?
I was in France, right, the first time I went, I was in 2.5 years, but I'd come back every year, so I only went for the season. I went for the winter season. The last part I went
the winter season where?
In Val d'Isère, France.
And what's that like? Where is the south coast?
It's a snowboarding season, and it was a very, very party orientated and snowboarding place. But I was in the mountains, and it was an experience I'll never forget, and I loved it. Yeah, not much happened for me out there spiritually, or like well, not that I know of anyway. I mean, I did meet a guy out there who claimed to work for people and said that basically he was given numbers. Anyway, we're going to go, it's all myth, isn't it, that? So, but yeah, so I got back from France. James is there in the house, and I come and stay with him, and then he starts talking about his experience in Clouds, and he said that he's seen a reptilian. And I was like, "Well, what do you mean you've seen a reptilian?" He was like, "Well, the way he explained it was he was sweating. He was having like he was freaked out over something.
Yeah, he mentioned this in Basis 23.
Did he mention it? Yeah. I've seen Basis 23. I can't remember.
Part 4, I think.
Yeah, but I have seen it, but I can't remember. But he did mention this to me. He said that basically this being turned up when he was asleep, and it freaked the hell out of him, and he jumped up out of his bed and sort of attacked it with a blanket or something. This is what he told me. And then apparently it happened a couple of times. He was pulled in to speak to this being. And then he also told me that the army was, this is what I think is a big thing here, that he said the army was recruiting in clouds, and that they pulled him in and asked him if he wanted to join the army, and he said yeah. And then he said that they sat him in a room, put headphones on him, and he was listening to like some sort of tones, which were like, and he freaked out and ran away. But he said the tones were like, it was just tones. Like, I don't know how they say it. It's like, tones. That's what he said to me. But this is stuff that he's told me, so I'm just verifying that he told me this before he went public with it, long before he went public with it. And I was definitely there in his house when he had manipulated, when things were going on. So there is definitely, without a doubt, something's gone on, whether you look at it like...
This is with his old girlfriend.
His old girlfriend was gone by then. Yeah,
and
his old girlfriend was gone by then.
He mentioned something about her eyes turned red, and she's
I've
like
heard
a demon
about
or
this.
something.
He said he thinks he killed her at one point or something, and they moved the body. That's it. But I don't know. You got to remember, this poor guy. He's searching for the truth. He's dealing with agents. He's got nowhere to run. And you think when I left the country, he had no one to talk to. We were the only people that used to talk together about it. So he was kind of left on his own to deal with it all. And I didn't really know what was going on. When I left, it wasn't that severe. It wasn't even, I didn't even know about this agent stuff. It all happened when I was away. So when I've come back, the only friends he had actually made were the ones in the intelligence community. They're almost his support pillar. So you can see.
What do you mean by his friends in the intelligence community?
Well, you're right. Okay, if you find out all of a sudden that all this stuff's going on, you're trying to dig for truth. You can't speak to anyone around you because everyone's going to think you're insane. If you tried speaking to them and think you're insane, right? Who are you going to turn to? The people that are giving you information. These intelligence people that are claiming to be part of this and claim they could tell you anything. Once they've got your trust,
And how many are you talking about? 3 or 4?
Well, the ones that I knew of was about 3, but there was more. Like, I know, James, when I was staying there, a dodgy van turned up outside because there was a house that used to be rented out next door, and James always used to talk about it was a house that belonged to a place. Oh, what was it called? I can't remember. It's just outside Plymouth. It was an army base or something. He said that it was a part of that, and that they used to use it to bring people in and surveillance on him. And this van turned up, so James had a security check done on it, and the van came back, the security check, that was registered to like 2 or 3 places, and that I can remember. Was
it a trading van?
I don't know what van. I think it was a van. It was like just a van, a transit van.
What made it dodgy? I mean, what was the... apart from any van that's driving around, what made it dodgy?
I don't know. James said he'd seen it a couple of times before, the same sort of van. He was like, they tend to use the same sort of vehicles, but like just basically different colour or stuff like that. He was... You've got to remember, Miles, at this point he's highly paranoid, You would be, wouldn't you? So like you're going to look into everything. Everywhere we went, he was like, we're being followed or this happened. But everywhere we went, weird stuff would happen all the time.
Such as?
Like, we stood up, for instance, Dave Marrow's friend came down to see me.
That's Alistair?
Yeah, because he thought that... Dave said that he...
we're talking 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
This is about the time I recorded Basis.
And he came down to see me because he knew that... Well, he thought Dave remembered me from stuff. And
so how did you get to know each other?
I think James put us in contact, or basically what had happened was when James started getting all this information, people just flocked to him, and because he was living in this like reality, he couldn't deal with anything. So what he used to do was palm them off on me. So sometimes I had to deal with it, and I would do it quite happily, you know, to try and help him out. So this guy came and stayed at my house. Anyway, the next morning we went out for lunch, and we sat there like by the railings looking out at sea, and blatantly out of nowhere some woman just walks straight over, looks at us and takes a photo of the pair of us, and we're like, what are you doing? You think that's paranoia, but that used to happen on a regular occurrence, and it'd always work in couples. So I'd always, you know, I'm a skeptic, so a little bit in that area. I want to prove it. So I was a bit like, look, it could be anyone, you know, it's a tourist town. When it happens over and over again, you do start to ask questions whether or not they're playing with your mind or it is something. It's a lot of coincidences, you know, especially why are they coming over and blatantly taking a photo of you? And we were talking about stuff to do with this, you know, and that happened.
And that's you and Dave Marrow, or you and or Alistair?
Yeah, that was me and Alistair. I met Dave Marrow afterwards, like about 2 months after. I tried to help him because he was really suffering from depression, and he was saying that he's losing his mind. So I was trying to help him spiritually.
So what is the beef then about Dave Marrow? Can you give any?
I don't really know, to be honest. As far as I used to get a lot of my information about, I don't remember him, and I used to get a lot of my information about Dave from James. And when I met Dave, he was just full of paranoia. He was really unsettled, and he was full of fear, and he thought at the time that we were against him, you know, me and a couple of people that were trying to just help him spiritually, but you know, he was on that much medication as well, you know, so that's not good. It's for your energy and stuff like that.
I mean, can you put a date on that? Any kind of a date? I know you.
Well, when I seen Dave, I'm trying to think when it was. I don't even. It's got to be 3 years. It's got to be 3 years ago. It's within that window. As I said, my time.
I'm just trying to figure out if it's
distortion.
after I saw him or beforehand. That's all.
I think it was that he hadn't gone public by then. They were asking for help. That was it. They literally were like, "We know that you've been through this stuff. Can you help us? You know, what do you know?" And I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything at all.
And there are other characters in this game that you seem to know, Elira and all that.
Well, they know me. I can't remember them. Do you know what I mean? This is the weird thing. I just used to get people contacting me and saying, "Oh, do you know this?" Or do you remember who I am? And things like that. And I'd be like, "No, I can't remember who you are. I don't have any memories of you." And they're like, "Well, we got memories of you." And they tell me stories or ask me like weird questions, you know? And I'd be like, "Well, I have no memories of this stuff," as in a memory like that. So I'm not going to say I'm a part of it if I've got no memories. Do you know what I mean? Simple as that. I've seen UFOs and stuff like that, but I haven't got any memories of this being a super soldier and stuff like that, which is basically what I was being told by quite a few people. So I met Anya. Well, I spoke to Anya. Yeah. She said she remembered me. I think.
Now, what did Anya say? I mean, how did you contact Anya, or how did she contact you?
It was in the cards for a while, but she basically sent me a message on Facebook, and I freaked out because she was like,
"What do you mean it was on the cards for a while? I mean, how did?"
Well, this is what I mean. Well, she sent me a message on Facebook, and I freaked out and never contacted her for like over a year or something, and then I get this. You see, all of a sudden, I'm like, right, okay, I've got to deal with this. So one day I decided to get in contact with her, and we Skyped, and we had a conversation, and she told me stuff then.
Such as?
Well, she said that she knew me from the programs, and that apparently I was some sort of explosive guy or something, and I used to she remembers missions that I was on stuff like that. That's what she told me.
Where were the missions?
Wasn't really specific. She just said that I had an ability to work with nature spirits, which was really funny because that was sort of like the work that I was into when I was younger. But whether she knew, I don't know how she knew that. And She said that I'd go in, set up like an explosion, and use them to get me out before the explosion went off.
You'd use the earth spirits to get you out.
Yeah, that's what she said to me. Yeah.
And so you'd be in a situation where you couldn't have got out of it.
Well, that's the memory that I've got. So if I've got confused, I'm sure she'll verify it.
I mean, out of a room or what?
I don't know, honestly. She didn't. We've just discussed it, like, as in, she just said she picked up on a few things. She said, "This is where I remember you. This is how I remember you," and she just said that. She said that she can remember me from a mission that we did or something, and that I went in, put these things in there, and then got out very quickly and was pulled out basically by these spirits, by these nature spirits. That's what she said to me. Mm.
And where were the explosives put? What were you blowing up?
I have no idea. Didn't even ask. I was too much to me. No point asking about details if you don't really believe that it happened, and if it did happen, then to me it would come out. That's what I thought.
So this is Anya telling you this.
Yeah, I always thought, well, everyone's starting to get recovered memories. I'm 33. I've had none. Do you know what I mean? So
how much of this is somebody else telling you you've had it, or
this is what I mean. I was thinking, why is this happening? But then, one or two people maybe who connected to James, 3 or 4. It's like nearly 5 people. I can't mention all the names until they come out in the public.
Can you mention any of them?
Right, there was Anya, James Rank, because I think he's come out publicly. There was another guy, which I don't want to say because and he'll be coming out in a couple of weeks, I think, because I've heard about a talk that he's giving. But until he does that, I don't want to say. He'll verify it, I'm sure. He knew.
Well, this isn't going to be edited for several weeks, so
yeah. But I don't know.
We can embargo that information and.
Pardon?
We can embargo that information.
Right. Well, you can cut it and then put it.
We'll embargo that information.
That was Max Spears. He said he knew me from a kid. Like he got in contact with me and said he knew me from Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk. Now,
who is Max Spears then?
I don't know. I didn't even know who he was. It's just some random guy, I thought. But apparently he's been connected to all this super soldier stuff. And like he knew me. Funny thing was, when I was 16, I moved to Bury St Edmunds for 3 months on my own with a guy called Austin. Like we went to work in a factory up there. And he seemed to say that he knew me from England. He used to live in Bury St Edmunds, and then he went off to America. That's all he said to me.
Was the factory in Bury St Edmunds a factory, or was it
a chicken factory? It's called Grampians. I used to work in a chicken factory, Grampians, Bury St Edmunds. Yeah, horrible job. Never work in a chicken factory. It put me off work, I tell you. Yeah.
Wasn't a cover for something else?
I don't know, Miles. Do you know? I don't look at things like that. You can speculate all you want, like, but once I know something, it's not here, it's here. And that's it.
Okay, so any others you can part of this group?
Right. So who have I mentioned? So that's
you got
3.
Anya.
Oh, so there's Dave, Anya, James. Dave Marrow, Max Spears, and obviously James himself used to always say to me all the time and put me in posts that he remembered me. But I mean, we hung around together and I was always there, and sometimes I used to think that he would create that in his mind because he didn't want to be in it alone. Do you know what I mean? I know that's maybe a bit selfish of me to say that, but then I wasn't getting any sort of memories of it. And also I'm very sceptical because, what kind of people do they seem to be targeting? To me, they seem to be targeting people that have got some sort of spiritual abilities or are quite open. Yeah, so if they wanted to say stop these people from coming into the public eye and helping people and talking about things that might benefit people, they could pull them into some sort of idea of a program, you know what I mean? Capture them into it.
So you're suggesting that this is basically some kind of...
I'm not. It's an idea. It's the same, Miles. I believe honestly that we need to keep the options open in this and start looking at everything, not point the finger at each other, because we all just want the same thing, the truth. So it's a possibility, isn't it? We all know that. It's a possibility that there's so many possibilities to a certain degree, but they are narrowing out very quickly.
Can you list that?
Well, yeah, like, to me, Right, James is working for the American government. He was blowing the whistle on the American government. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. He did a crime in an English country, and now he's in the American army. Or if he's not in, some people are saying that I've heard that he's not in the army. But then, you know,
I think he's now out of it as of March 2013.
Yeah. So he told me before he went to America that he was gonna be doing stuff anyway, but he didn't mention the army. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean by stuff?
Well, he had a meeting with Haley's dad and stuff. That was the first time he went. He was gonna.
So what about the meeting with Haley? When did he meet Haley?
A meeting with Haley.
When did they get together?
I'm not too sure. He told me. I think he went to France to meet her. I'm not too sure on that though, and I might have got that from his talk, but I'm pretty sure that he went to France to meet her. And I know that Haley turned up in St Ives with some sort of secret French service guy in a blanked out limo, and they drove around everywhere. You know, that's a small village. So I know that happened. And I know that Haley was stopped from getting into the country as well, because I had James bloody distraught and angry about it.
Yeah, I think that's when he contacted John Irwin.
He was angry. He phoned MI5 station up as well and went mad at them and said if John Bonner doesn't let him in, he's going to start killing people. He was losing it, you know. And that's, I'm all about truth.
Yeah.
So that's the truth. I mean,
he wasn't happy about this.
Oh, of course you wouldn't be, would you? And especially if you think you're being manipulated, you know. And he loved Haley, like he adored her in that sense. They wanted to meet each other, the two minds. You know, they were very similar. So yeah, it really upset.
In what way were they similar? Clones? Or are they both out of the same test tube?
I just think they were similar on the same wavelength. They could, you got to think. It's not many people you can talk to about this, especially when you're in that deep. If you are in that deep, that are going to even listen to you, let alone understand what you're saying. And they were on the same wavelength, weren't they? She used to do research before. Look at her family. It's all you need to say, really.
Well, can you mention that for the viewer?
Yeah, well, look at her family. The family's one of the richest families in America. The whole family, 10th richest family, was in Forbes magazine. I mean, they've had connection to the Bushes. Her dad's got companies with Kissinger, So you look at you only need to look at the money. And you'll start to see there's a definite connection there, 100%. No, why do you think? You look at all the pictures he's been posting lately of him hanging around with that Lord dude and some, I don't know, some high end.
That was at a charity do in a auction house in New York.
Yeah, what are they doing there? You only get invited to those sort of do's if you know people. You got money, don't you?
And any in these closing moments of the second take, what do you have to offer about James and your history and background with him? Anything else?
The reason I did this was because when I seen the videos and I seen them talking about stuff, and I seen the response from the public and what they were like, I thought to myself, look, these were good people. James was a good person, he was a loving guy. He went into this with nothing but trying to find the truth. And if the manipulations happened, he's put himself in danger. He's done this, he's done that. There could be 100. There could be other stories. He could be working inside, all this sort of stuff. I'm going to say it because it's obvious. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I've put his life in danger, for God's sake. He spoke out about stuff himself. So there's lots of possibilities, but these are good people. This is the raw facts. These are good people. They've obviously had manipulation, whether it's ETs, government, whatever you want to put it. They had so many experiences, and some people are messing with their heads. I was there during the surveillance. I was there during everything. So instead of pointing the finger at these people, recognise it for what it is. It's good people trying to get the truth out, and they might have been manipulated or they might not. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's not going to help pointing fingers at each other, is it? And saying, oh, you're lying, you're this. Let's get to the truth about it, And
we've got a photograph of James looking very thin.
Yeah, that was how I remembered James, And I will say, and I'll say it on camera and I'll be honest about it. When James come back from America the first time, I didn't recognise him, and I've told you the past. We were into God, we were into everything. He knew what was going on. I used to talk to him about, everything's an illusion. You create with your mind. He knew what I was talking about. When he got back from America, the only thing he could comprehend was survival, and survival of the fittest. He didn't know who God was and stuff like that, which I was completely shocked about, because I was like, dude, we used to talk about this for years. Now, survival is the R complex. I mean, anyone that wants to research that for yourself. It will tell you the exact traits of where that comes from, and I'm not going to start going into it in great detail because the information's out there, but research the R complex and then you will realise what's being targeted and what's happening.
So why was he so thin? I mean, the guy looks gaunt.
Well, look at that. I mean, you're talking, this is a picture, sorry.
Yeah,
This is a picture before. Like, I think, I mean, when he came back from America, he'd really filled out within, he only went for 3 months. I didn't blimmin' recognise him when he got back. He looked absolutely massive. When he went away, James has never been a big eater. The whole time I've known James, he's not been a big eater. He used to hardly eat at all. He'd just eat he wasn't, some people eat to live, some people eat to survive. He was an eat to survive sort of person. When he come back, he was massive. He changed shape, and also, you look at him and what he was saying, completely like, how do you forget all the things that you've ever, you studied for years and then go on about blimmin' survival and stuff like that? To me, it didn't blimmin' make sense. The only thing, that I was thinking maybe he was trying to protect me, because like when he went to America afterwards, I never really heard anything from him, and he's showed empathy towards me a couple of times, but he's really kept his distance. So whether or not he's trying to keep me safe, I don't know, but he didn't need to do that.
Well, we're going to talk in part 3 about some other characters and some kind of a thing which happened up in Holyrood. You part of that ceremony?
I don't know what was that.
We mentioned it in the in basis 23 part 3 or 4 about a ceremony involving another guy that we were going to plan to meet this weekend.
Oh, I can remember. Yeah, I remember him saying it. I don't know. See, James, he's not mentioned anything to me about it. I'm not really in contact with him like that anymore.
Yeah.
So.
No, there was a bald-headed guy. Are you familiar with that other guy?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that other guy. And is he definitely going public? I'll say his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've met him. We used to work together, all of us. Like as in do spiritual stuff and make things happen and stuff.
What
in
do you
a
mean
group.
by make things happen?
Well, when you're in a group,
and obviously Grid Keeper as well.
Yeah, well, I've never met Grid Keeper. I didn't meet him personally, but I met. When you work in a group together, me and James have been doing this for a long time spiritually. Things happen if you focus your attention on things. And that's. What
do you mean by things happen, very briefly?
Well, you create things, You can say, we want this to happen, and then you focus on it, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it don't. It depends. Like we used to. I mean, you're talking like we were 18 and we were running into this information. We didn't understand the principle of sort of like not using your power to your own advantage. We didn't really understand things like that. I mean, we just sort of we just thought it was fun, and we used to do things, go and create meeting women or do this, or do you know what I mean? Things like that, and it would happen regularly, or go out and say we're going to have a spiritual experience. Well, for instance, I'll just literally end it on this. One time, me and James were like, right, we're going to have a really good night tonight. We're going to have a real spiritual experience, all this sort of stuff. So we go into town with that mindset, and we'd leave at 2 a.m, and then we walk around town. Things would start getting a bit dodgy or a bit weird, like the lifeboat people would turn up and just park by us and weird things like that. And then as we got into town,
we got to wind up as we run out of tape.
Right, as we got into town, we got to Porthmere. There was a guy shining a massive torch over at Porthmere like this, looking everywhere. There's a big beach. I went over and said, all right, mate, what's going on here then? And he looked at me and James and he goes, have you seen any funny lights in the sky tonight? No, that's what I said, and that did happen. You know, that
what's the significance of that very quickly?
Well, you know, it's coincidence or we created it. Which one is it? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I think you draw things in together.
Well, we got to wind up. On this second section, we'll have a break and then we'll finish things off.
Put themselves in danger, so it's going to be kind of like expectable. There's going to be true fan stuff in it. There's not that. What I was saying was not to, you know, point fingers and to try and get to the truth rather than, you know, go at each other. We need to use each other, help each other. You know, unite. It's unity. This is time of unity, isn't it? You know, it's not the time of separateness. That's gone. That's such an old way.
We mentioned the people that we know that they know, and okay, it's going to be okay. Bases 24, take 3, take 1. Okay, Jan, you've got some philosophical things to talk about.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's basically run on things that I've found out through my own experiences, through my own self-growth, and just basically looking into the truth. I think they're not very hard to spot if you look at things with empathy, because that's what's lacking in this world at the moment, and unity. And then the two most important things is empathy, unity. Well, you can put empathy to love if you want, but it's the same thing. That's through my experiences. First of all, I'd like to talk a little bit, just a tiny bit about, because I did actually mention it earlier. It's about Machu Picchu in I've probably pronounced that wrong, but it's about that place in Peru, and they called it the crystalline city, and it's basically full of granite. Now, I was saying that there's a connection with Cornwall, because Cornwall's full of granite. Now, if you look at St Michael's Mount, it's on a ley line, pretty much the same as Machu Picchu, and it's basically a granite pyramid. I mean, you look at it, it's huge, and it's full of granite. So the whole of Cornwall's got granite everywhere. What is it with granite? Granite is obviously a frequency or a conductor. You know, it's good for energy. So these people that are in power, or you know, they know this stuff, I'm sure, because if you look at Cornwall, dating back to, crikey, I mean, I've got things written down. I think it's like the 1925, the 19,025. Basically, there was about...
That's 1925.
Yeah, 1925. There was a base called Nance Cook. Very much need to research this, because this is it went public. It's in the public. They did a news press on it. If you put Nance Cook Part 1 into Google, you'll get a video on YouTube and it'll tell you everything about it. Basically, this camp was set up just after the Geneva Convention, when they banned any sort of chemical weapons going on. So what they did was they decided, they found a load of chemical weapons after the war in Germany, a chemical factory, so they nicked all the ideas, stole everything they could, and they moved...
You're talking World War One.
Yeah, and they moved everything over basically to Cornwall, and they started up a secret base there, a chemical war factory, and they were doing stuff on CS gas, all sorts of things. NATO was involved in this, and they brought many scientists over. This is public, you know, if you look into it, it's in the public area. What are NATO doing in Cornwall? And why are they bringing all these scientists over from, you know, at that time?
And it's got lots of bases.
Exactly.
What's
the thing with Cornwall?
No, but what's the surprise there? What's the?
Well, this is to me, it's saying, you know, you look at the. Cornwall's got these people are interested in Cornwall. Hitler's right-hand man, Rubinstein, I think his name was. He was interested in Cornwall. I mean, he was interested in St Michael's Mount itself. It was known that Hitler had promised him after the war, if they won, he could have St Michael's Mount and he could have Tregenna Castle as a holiday home. I mean, if you put it in and look at pictures, you'll see it's huge. Now, what is the interest with St Michael's Mount, and why would these German people be interested in it? Hitler actually said that certain places in Cornwall couldn't be bombed because they were important. So, you know,
do you have a name for those places?
Basically, it was the places around that he was interested in. St Michael's Mount, you know, he's not going to bomb places he's interested in. Why was these people interested in it? And that's what I want to know.
St Michael's Mount's a heck of a distance.
St Michael's Mount is on a ley line. It's all to do with energy. Now, we all know that the Nazis were kind of like interested in black magic. Yeah, they were interested in these things. So, to me, they knew the importance of Cornwall. They knew the importance of these energy grids. These energy grids can be used for good or bad, because it's not going to defy the difference between either one. It's just an energy grid. So if it's lower vibration or higher vibration, or it doesn't matter. It's just going to reset to either.
Is this stuff you worked on with James?
I never really worked with James. The reason I started looking into this was because I remember James mentioned that the Nazis had some sort of like influence over Cornwall, so I wanted to have a look and, you know, see whether or not I could pull up information about it before, or pull up information to prove that there is definitely an interest here, and it's not just the Nazis. The royals are heavily involved in St Michael's Mount, and that is for fact. I used to work there, and we've had royals come over and visit there. For instance, the guy that received St Michael's Mount, if I can find his name, Colonel John St Auburn, he was the first person to receive the mount. He is a high-level Freemason. Yeah, and that was his Grand Master, and that's Wikipedia. It's all over. It's in the St Albans official website. If you research this guy, you will find that he had massive connections to the Freemasons. There's one thing.
Is that anything? What's the good or bad?
Well, you know, it's just putting a connection together. If you look at it, anyone that knows anything about the Freemasons, you know, and especially at that high level, there's something going on there to a certain degree. They know more than we do, apparently. So, you know, there's a connection there. Also, when they give St Michael's Mount back, the Albans family, they give it to the National Trust. Now, the National Trust is Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, has got massive investments in it, so it's been given back to royalty, you know, basically. Why? What is the interest in this place? How do they know about this stuff? You know, it's a ley line, it's a mount. I mean, you look at this place, it's basically a pyramid. So they come and visit this place. Also in Cornwall, this was a recent date. If you have a look over at Land's End, I posted this on my Facebook. They were talking about mines down in Land's End, which go 5-6 miles under the sea, like tin mines and stuff like this. They were flooded over a period of time. Well, for some reason, the Queen herself went down there in a submarine. And this is in mainstream news. You can pull it up. There was articles done about it. Why is she going down to some mine in a submarine? This is the Queen. You know, let's just take a trip down to a mine in a submarine. For what? You know, and this is what I'm saying. underground tunneling systems that are 5-6 miles out, so you should see these things. It's almost unbelievable. I've got a map of it on my Facebook. If anyone wants to check it out, I'll pull it up.
What is your Facebook? What do you call it?
I'm Jan Rodrigo. Just add me, and I'll add anyone. I'll talk to anyone. I've got nothing to hide. You know what I mean? If anyone wants to talk to me personally, I'll even give my phone number out. I'm not. Do you know what I mean? I've got nothing to hide. This is about the truth. So all I'm doing is just giving you information and saying this needs to be researched and looked into. I think this is what we've got to start doing, is to become unified and to unite and to become together. We have to start respecting each other's individual ideas, individual belief, individuality, and look at it as an expression of, consciousness. Like everyone's just an expression of consciousness. There's nothing bad about it. That's it. We're all searching for the truth. The worst thing we can do is get irate and angry. That doesn't solve anything. In fact, when you look at it on an energy level, it's actually doing more damage than good. And I'm not going to go into this deeply here because I've only got half an hour. But what I will say is this sort of stuff needs to be looked into. We've looked into atoms. They've now found, you've got a wave, a particle. When you do an experiment for a wave, you'll find a wave. When you do an experiment for a particle, you'll find a particle. They're saying it's the observation that is actually changing the experiment. The experiment will correspond to that to the observation of consciousness. The person doing the experiment. They're saying that it's not proven, but they're saying there's a big thing here. This could mean that we actually are interacting and creating things, so that needs to be looked into, because that's massive. It's huge. We can't just blow that out the window because mainstream science says, oh yeah, it's a load of rubbish. I mean, what really do they know? Do you know what I mean? And everyone knows that. It's all guesswork, isn't it? So we need to open our minds here, join together, not fight each other or argue with each other. It's unity now, not separateness. It's so primitive. And also the heart now has been known. I mean, you can research this stuff. I've got loads of links, but I haven't got time for this and things like that now. We've got to be quick. The heart itself's magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain.
Yeah, but you can have those links on your Facebook.
Yeah, I can have those links on my I've got links on my Facebook. If you run through my Facebook page, you will find all the stuff I'm talking about and more. There, I post every day. I try and help people. And it's ideas, remember. It's not, I'm saying believe me. I'm just saying open your bloody minds, people, because, we're not going anywhere being rigid, are we? So let's start working together. The heart itself, the magnetic field, is 5,000 times stronger than the brain. They've proven through certain tests and experiments that having gratitude, having love, having these wonderful feelings will actually affect the magnetic field of the heart, and it will affect the magnetic field and can be felt by other people, and it works exactly in the other way as well. So when you walk into a room, there's bad energy, bad vibe, everyone's felt that. Or if you've got someone staring at you, you can't see them, and then you're like, oh, someone's looking at me. Where do these things come from? We need to question these things, start looking into them, rather than just calling them spiritual jargon or whatever. I remember a time I couldn't even talk about an aura because people were like, they don't exist. Well, I'm sorry, what's a magnetic field? What's electric field? Do you know what I mean? These things are starting to slowly come in together, and there's people are so blimmin' stubborn. They're like, oh, I don't want to call it an aura, I'll just call it electric field. Well, let's be honest, they're talking about the same thing. So, we need to start opening our minds and working together. The reason I'm talking about the heart is because I believe 100% that this is where it's at. It's about opening ourselves up to each other, loving each other properly. And love is not afraid. Love will not run away. Love will speak the truth wherever it is without fear. It doesn't even comprehend fear. I've got no fear whatsoever about this, because what are they going to do? It's my body. Do you know what I mean? That's it. I'll move on, whatever. In my reality, it doesn't exist. You have love. That is it for each other. You have unity. We've got to pull together. This is what it's all about. We've been separated so badly to the point of race, the street, it's ridiculous. We're all in this together. Everyone, we're all in the same thing together. Everyone's unhappy, whatever level you look at it. If you look at it from a lower state of awareness where you're just a worker and you're working to survive, what are you doing? You're paying tax, you're getting raped by the banks, we're paying their debt off, and if you don't pay your mortgage, they come take your house away. That's absolute insanity to me. We're paying the bank's debt off. Why are we doing that? Why are people not saying this is ridiculous? What is going on? We have to start looking out for each other and looking at the world with a bit of empathy. If there's lack of empathy and there's lack of love and unity, something's flipping wrong. Right, and it's as simple as that. We are living in an insane society, and the people that are aware of this, you've got to start coming out and talking about it, and because this is what it's about. It's about joining together, uniting together. There's nothing dangerous. There's nothing wrong with doing this. I can't see any bad problem with it. It's only ever going to be beneficial to do this, rather than argue, this guy's belief, that guy's belief. Oh, he's a Christian, he's a Muslim, I don't want to know him. Oh, he's this. Love and light person, don't want to know them. Do you know what I mean? We're all in this together. I don't see what the problem is. We're all looking for the same thing. So, it's just so petty, all this separateness and all this ludicrous sort of pointing fingers and stuff. We're all in this world, and we've all got to deal with it. And it's ours. It's not theirs. This is look at the numbers here, and I'm not talking about a revolution or going crazy. Look at the numbers. Yeah, on an energy level, you get 50 to 60% feeling a different way, acting a different way. You will change society. Society's a mirror of our minds. We need to start using our hearts and creating.
So let's put this down into 5 basic steps. Can you do that?
Yeah, it's really simple. It's not. The first step is to become aware, and the awareness comes from looking at something and going, "That's not right." And you can only do that with empathy and a bit of common sense and love. You can't. If you look at the world, it's not right. Simple as that. Look at the way the children are programmed. Look at. We're all working like slaves for what? To die and give your money away? It doesn't make sense to me. So you've got to start looking at things. That's the first thing. Let's become aware of what's around. Let's look at things as ideas rather than fact and belief, and start choosing which ones are right, like towards love and then unity and empathy. Work towards that. The next one is love. That's it. You just got to love everyone unconditionally, like you would love yourself or a child, whether or not what state of awareness they're at. You wouldn't scream at a child if they didn't know better and start smacking. Well, some people would, but I wouldn't. You'd have a bit of empathy with them. A lot of people are like that. You have to be like that with them. So especially the ones that apparently know more than other people. Surely we should have a bit of like that with us, rather than going, I've just had enough of this. You know what I mean? That's one. That's 2 things. Love. Love and awareness. And then the other one's unity. Unity. Come on. We're all one people. We're not separate. We're not black, white, blimmin' this, or that doctor, this. We're all together, and everyone is pissed off and not happy with what's going on. So why are we not pulling together, not going crazy, having riots and things like that? It doesn't solve anything, does it? We've done it flipping years. So let's do things differently. You could pull each other together. Let's break away from the system if we have to. We can work together. There's many options. What I'm saying is, we've got to be together. How can the break away?
How can the giving up of things? David Icke's been saying this.
I've done it. I've never been. Look at me. Do I look like I'm in society? Do you know what I mean? I don't function in society like that. And whenever I when I have to speak my truth and something that is not right, I will do it no matter what. And I'll do it straight, no matter what. This is it. You can only start slowly anyway. If you're in the system, you can't just go, right, I'm out of the system. It's thought followed by decent action. You know, you have the thoughts, you create something, and then you follow by action. If we're all doing this, it's going to make it a hell of a lot easier. You know, 1 or 2 people doing it, yeah, what's it going to cause? They're going to just lock you up. But if you come together, and you all come together, and you say, no, we aren't having this, we're not doing this, we're not complying with you. And I mean, David Icke goes on about, he's got it spot on as far as I'm concerned in that area, yeah. And it is a bit, it's scary. I've gone through a massive awakening. I went through some really hard stuff to come to this. And it is literally about unity and love, and that is it, unity and love. Let's start pulling together, you know, let's get the awareness going. You know, let's take it out of this bloody reptilian sort of complex survival sort of scared fear, what happens if I do this and what happens if I do that. You know, I took a leap in faith, and this video is it. You know, I've come down with nothing from Cornwall, just jumped on a bus, didn't even know where I was going. I paid like money that I didn't have, but it's a leap of faith. I didn't even know really what I was going to talk about. I mean, you can ask some of my stuff, it's all over the place, but I knew it had to be done, and I just wanted to get the truth out and be, you know, a part of it. Let's make an example. There's many of us here now. We're not really like the minority like that anymore. You know, the more we do this, the more the world will change. It's not going to change with us sat there behind a bloody computer screen, arguing with each other, or, you know, just posting information, or, oh yeah, I'm creating, I think about it every day, but I stay in my normal job. You know, you can't do that. You have to, if you're going to create, you have to cause action a little bit as well, because it's never going to work. And one of the missing keys to manifestation is the heart. And that's 100%. I've learned that in the last couple of years. It's the heart. You know, if it's right, it will come. You know, if it's there, it will come. No? And that's basically my message. I could go on for a long time, and, you know, I could add evidence everywhere, but the evidence is out there. You've just got to look for it. It is there. It's there. It's just the mainstream doesn't want this stuff out, and we all know why. For God's sake, if this stuff is real and it got out and people understood it, isn't it our key to freedom? In fact, aren't we already free? It's just a choice. That's it. It's just a choice, and I reckon I realise that it's a choice. It's a choice on what you're doing, choice on who you are, what you're representing. You know, that's it really. That's all I can say about it. I can't really put it any simpler in the amount of time that we've got. But that's my feelings on it all.
Okay.
Just, you are love. You are. That's it. You are love. No, that's it. That's all it is. You are love. Simple.